Today I've got Jim and Mark McSpadden, good friends of mine. They've been putting garage doors in Cleveland as long as they've had garages. The McSpaddens have 5 generations in Cleveland, and you just can't get much more better than that. It's going to be a great discussion. How's that? No matter which one I get, they come with a color, right?
Yes.
So I can paint that if I want. Does it stick pretty good?
I just have them clean it.
Clean it and paint it.
Yeah, if they clean
Get
it
any
first.
machine oils off of it.
Because this is the color, this is almost the color they want, but not quite. So just like clean it with what?
What is that, black?
Black.
Just a good wash, just some detergent or something.
And then,
Yeah.
Wash
then
it
paint
down
it.
and dry it.
How long will it stay, Jim?
How long would it stay?
Yeah.
Once you paint, you always gotta paint. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
but I'd say 10, 12 years,
That's long enough.
so.
probably.
10 years will get me, won't it?
It'll get me
I don't
for
know,
sure.
I still do service on some of yours, it's 45, 30 years.
Boy, I tell you what, time flies, doesn't it?
It does.
When did you say Beecher Hunter was your Sunday school teacher?
Yes.
Where's that at?
First Baptist.
Oh. What does
Yeah.
he teach?
Well, he teaches senior adults, which is, I qualify.
They don't agree.
And,
Barely, right?
yeah, right. I'm gonna be 80 this year.
Is that right?
Yeah. And, when I got into this door business, that was back in 1977 here in Cleveland.
Who was the big builders then?
Well, Doug Gay was a builder back then.
I remember
Matter
Doug.
of fact, he was my first customer.
Doug Gay.
Yeah, he
Well,
he ordered the first door that I ever sold.
He
here in
built a
Cleveland.
good house, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And then Bob Kaler, I did a lot of
Bob
work for
Kaler.
Bob. And Bob Johnson was his partner back then.
Bob Johnson, I remember him.
And I remember one time Bob Johnson, he owed me some money. And so he came by the shop and he hadn't paid me in a while. So he threw his hat through the door first.
Make sure windows huge.
yeah, he said, is it okay if I come in? I said, sure. But yeah, that was a unique time back then when I first started here. I had a great aunt who lived here in town, and she told me when I went into business, she said, well, you're not going to be able to make it here because nobody has garage doors here. Everybody has carports. And I said, well, okay. And about 10 years later, I put a door on her carport.
Was garage doors? I didn't realize that. I guess that's right, wasn't it? When did garage doors come into?
Well, they had the kick-out doors, the old flip-ups,
When did they have them?
Oh,
I had them growing up.
Yeah, they've had them since the early 50s, late 40s, I think. They go back a long way.
You had to move out of the way.
Yeah.
They phased those out in the later 80s.
Are they almost
in the 80s?
a danger thing now?
Well,
They're pretty much obsolete. They don't seal off for one thing, because
Yeah.
And they're
they're
not
off the
secure.
ground.
And you had, because you can take a wire and go into there and you can lift it out and reach in
grab
there.
that cable and pull it up.
I used to get in my house.
There's a crowbar you can take and pop one of those in 2 minutes.
There's only a
Less.
few companies probably still left making that type of door, and it's more or less the hardware for your specialty homes in like California, where they make them out of wood or something, and they only have certain clearances, because those don't take any clearance. They actually stick down below the header. I don't know if you ever read.
Oh, that's
remember that.
right, yeah.
So you didn't get the clearance of the opening. Was the big problem too.
Oh, that's right. They'd stick down about that
About
far.
6 inches, yeah.
If you had a camper, you'd have to go in there and push it up to get the
You
car.
wouldn't make it. So there's still quite a few of them in town, though. I mean, there's still quite
I
a few
guess
houses,
they're around, yeah.
But
Oh, yeah,
we
they're
still
still
take them
there.
out. We still
And a lot of them are rusted at the
They
bottom,
are,
right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They all rusted at the bottom.
I remember I used to be able to pull the garage door back, reach my under, and pull the cable, and it would unlock it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, no security at all with those. And I had a difficult time converting some of the builders at the time from that kick-out door because it was fairly inexpensive compared to a sectional garage door.
Yeah, it was like nothing, right?
Yeah.
Your lumberyard.
And they would put it in themselves.
Oh, yeah, the
kickouts.
lumberyard sold them, the builder put it in, and they were all put in, and no track spacing. A lot of them would come off the track or whatever. Anyway,
There's only 2 plastic rollers that hold the back of that whole door up.
right,
Okay, 2.
Crazy. isn't it?
And then the front did have the hinged arms, you know, but that whole back, I mean, I can tell you, there's quite a few of them that fell
Flip
on
up.
cars. Because
Yeah.
that little plastic roller would break and it'd fall and, you know.
Wouldn't they also come down at times when the spring would get loose?
Yeah, they
Or-
would, after a year or two, that
Yeah.
spring would kind of slack up and they
Yeah.
just fall back on their own or whatever.
And they weren't insulated at all.
No.
were
no,
they? Just
no. No, they were just to close off an opening,
Yeah.
so to speak.
So why did you get into garage doors?
Well, I got into garage doors up in Chicago in 1965. I was studying to be a CPA, and I applied for a job as a bookkeeper at this garage door company. And I was their bookkeeper for an hour and a half. Because an hour and a half into the job, the phone started ringing and nobody was answering it, so I started answering it and taking service calls. And we had a bookkeeping service next door, and I knew of them, and so I convinced the owner of the door company there to let them do the bookkeeping and let me do the service manager. So he did that, and I more or less, by answering the phone a few times, talked myself into the garage door business.
So at that point, you were in the garage door business. What
Yeah.
were you doing in Chicago?
Well, I was born here in Bradley County, up off Smith Drive, up by Graveyard Hill. And,
Whereabouts?
okay, up on top of the hill, there's a little street that goes just right off to the right of the graveyard. If you're coming from, if
Yeah.
you're going toward Ocoee Street,
Yeah.
right, up at the top of Graveyard Hill, there's a little side road there.
15th Street.
Yeah, I think that might be it. But anyway, the second house in there had a little shack behind it, and that's where I was born. Right there up on top of Graveyard Hill, across the street from the
What
graveyard.
was it like when you were born there?
I don't remember.
For how long did you live there?
Well, we weren't there long. My dad wound up working for the Cleveland dry cleaners. It was Mr. Bridges owned it back then. And he was up here, I think, from Florida. Anyway, he owned the dry cleaning business there, the laundry, Cleveland Laundry, I think it might have been called. Anyway, he drove a truck for them, and we had a house over on Wilson Avenue on the other side of town, if you know where that's at. And we were over there. See, I left here, and we went to Ohio in 1950, actually 49, late 49. And we were in Ohio for a year. And then we went to Illinois where Dad got on with Reynolds Aluminum Company.
Why'd you leave here?
He couldn't get work.
In 19 what?
1948,
Was it just slow here?
very slow. He worked for the enamel plant. And he worked for, I think Mom said he earned, his take-home pay for a week was $13.99 back then. And so that precipitated a move. We had relatives that had gone north, and there's a town outside of Chicago called Hodgkins, Illinois. And they called that little Cleveland. There were so many people from here up there.
Is that right?
And there was a town like that in up in Michigan, up by what's the capital of Michigan?
Detroit or something.
Detroit?
Detroit. Okay, there's a little Cleveland up in Detroit too.
All because people from Cleveland, Tennessee left here after the war.
After the
Because there
war,
wasn't much
because
going
yeah.
on.
there wasn't enough
Because
going
Grandpa came
on
back
to
from
keep
the war and
everybody
Couldn't get a
employed
good
to the
paying
level
job.
they needed to be, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
then,
How were you and what grade of school were you at when you moved up there to Chicago?
when I went to Chicago, I was in the 4th grade, I think it was.
What school did you go to here?
I went to Big Springs, and I went to Liberty School,
Hadn't heard of that one.
okay? Ladd Springs Road and Spring Place Road, there's a little church building there now, but that was a 2-room schoolhouse.
So after we turn from Spring Place, you turn on Ladd
On
Springs.
Ladd Springs.
Yeah.
It's right there on the left, that church right there.
That
That
was
was
a
a-
2-room schoolhouse called Liberty School, and I went there.
You just
Me and
lived
my
down the
brother.
road.
Was it a
too.
county school?
Evidently.
So you don't remember do you remember anything about the school?
I remember a boy threatening me with a knife that his dad got it for his birthday, and I took it away from him and threw it into the woods. And I felt so bad about that, that after school, I went out with that young man, and him and I looked for that knife forever and couldn't find it.
Wonder who that was.
I have no idea. I wish I knew, because I should not have done that to him.
Well, he shouldn't have pulled a knife
Well,
on you
no,
too.
but I mean, you know, it's just one of those things that happen. And
Wonder how you could find that guy. Because he may live two miles down the road.
He might.
You know?
he might be my neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I had a friend like that I met at Deer Park, and we had the best time one summer. And I never knew his name, nothing.
Well, let me tell you, I met here, since I've been living here since '77, Robbie Mantooth. And
He built houses, right?
yeah, Robbie did. And when I was a kid, this is back before 1950 now, I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. He had there was a fella here in town, a Gene Officer, I think it was his uncle, Peg Officer was his name. And I remember sitting on Peg Officer's front porch, turning an ice cream churner. And Robbie remembers sitting on that same front porch, and he said, we had to be there the same time. He said, because they didn't do that often there.
But people did it like once a month or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. Churn ice cream.
Yeah, I remember
People wouldn't know how to churn ice cream now, would they?
Well, I've got some friends who are going to be doing that this Friday for a picnic.
Is it
It's not by
automatic?
hand, it's automatic.
Automatic?
Yeah, it is. But I've done the hand crank with the salt and all that.
Peaches.
Oh yeah, peach ice cream.
So when you left here, when you was in the 4th grade, how long were you gone?
Till 1972, and in 1972 I moved up to Lenore City and had a new home built up there, and was there 2 years. Then I went back to Chicago for 3 years and ran the company I worked for prior. And then I came here in '77 and started this company.
In '77, when you left there, did you just say, "Hey guys, I want to get back to my hometown"?
Well, there's a little bit of history to that. The company I worked for was a fairly good sized company. When I started with them, we had, I think it was about $400,000 a year they were doing. And when I left there, we were doing 3.2 million. So we had grown that company over about a 7 or 8 year period. And I saw the handwriting on the wall there. He had 3 sons, and they all came into the business. Only one of them wound up staying for the long haul. But I didn't know that, at the time. So I thought, I've gone about as far as I can go here, so I think I'll try going out on my own. And I didn't want to go into competition with him because he taught me the business. And so I felt an obligation not to do that. I've always had an innate sense of right and wrong. You do certain things, you don't do other things. And anyway, that's how,
How old were you when you came back here?
34. Yeah.
Does that seem like home at all where you lived, or is this home?
Oh, no, this has always been home.
That never seemed like home.
My house that I live in right now was the house that my grandmother lived in from the 40s until she died in 1971. My dad bought it for her to live in. And I bought it from him, tore the old house down and built my new house there. And it's right here in town.
The McSpaddens have been here how long?
Oh, goodness. Well, the McSpaddens, we've been here since, well, Dad was born here. He was born over in Old Fort.
Well, Red Hill, there we got plats, and they're in the 1800s. The one is 18
Right.
something, but it's later 1800s. But I had one lady I did a job for that was a McSpadden, and she had done some genealogy, and she said it was like 1851. She thought the first one.
Wonder where they
here.
came from.
So I don't know.
I was told they came from up around Maryville, and there are McSpaddens in Maryville. And my family is the Blaylocks up in Sevier County and the Maples. That's my mother's people, and my grandfather and my grandmother, a Blaylock and a Maples.
My grandfathers were Owenbys, and they came from Sevierville.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something significant about this area.
I've got grandparents and great-grandparents buried up in Sevierville at Red Bank Cemetery up
I
there.
bet the Owenbys and the McSpaddens were friends back then.
Oh, yeah.
We know my wife was an Owenby.
Oh, is that
Tammy
right?
Owenby.
Which one was she?
And Tammy Owenby.
But what was...
She went to Cleveland, except for her 11th grade year. She came to Bradley just for 1 year, and then she went back to Cleveland. But that's how we met, basically. But
She went back to Cleveland in the 12th grade?
but she, she was on being.
But y'all
a lot
went
of
to
her
the
family
prom
was up
together,
there
right?
In Knoxville, huh?
Did y'all go to the prom together?
Yeah, we did. Yep.
You
Yeah.
met her in the 11th, dated her in the 12th, and went...
Yeah.
But which one was she connected to?
Well, most of her family was up from Maryville and Knoxville.
Same thing. I bet we're
So-
related. Who's her grandfather
And,
or grandmother? Do you know?
I don't know. And they had some funny names back then.
Well, they named Owenby and then OWNBY and OWNBEY.
There was no
Yeah.
E in hers right now.
There's no E?
There was no E when I met her. Yeah, I don't know if it was years
It's
ago. or
got to
what,
be the same.
yeah.
They're from
Well,
there.
her dad was born in Gatlinburg. My father-in-law, he was actually
Is she
born in
related to
Gatlinburg in the
Tommy
mountains, and
Owenby?
they were mountain people. I mean,
She related to Tommy Owenby? You know Tommy?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if she is not. Not that
Do you
I
know
of.
Tommy?
Yeah, I know who he is,
Which one?
but I don't know.
The wild one, Tommy? Real smart? Oh. Well, it's funny how
But
we're
that's
all
funny. Your grandparents were Owenbys.
Owenbys. Yeah, my mother's maiden name is Owenby, and her dad was Roy Owenby, and I can't remember, but they're all from Sevierville. I wonder what the significance was in the 1800s, 1830s or 40s from them coming there to here. That's odd, isn't it? Maybe it's the copper mines.
Bowater, actually.
Copper mines, maybe.
When Bowater opened, quite a
Yeah.
few of them came down. And then my father worked for Brown Stove.
But that would have been later, right?
Yeah, that would
I
have been a
bet
lot later.
I bet it was
Yeah,
the
that would've
copper
been later.
mines. Because you
could
said
be.
your grandfather was from Old Fort. right?
My father was from Old Fort.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
was migrated down. But, so when you came here at 34, when you came back,
Yeah.
were you nervous?
No, oddly enough, I wasn't.
How old was Mark?
went into did the 6th grade at Hopewell. I went to.
So you went from first to fifth?
Yeah, because I went to 1st and 2nd grade in Lenore City. Went to kindergarten in Chicago. Went to 1st and 2nd in Lenore City.
Yeah.
They called me a Northern Yankee there. Went back to Chicago for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I was called a hillbilly there. And then I came back to, and I went to the 6th grade at Hopewell.
And then from
And then
there
from
to
there-
Bradley High?
Yeah.
And when I left here and went to Chicago, I got kidded about my accent. That's why I talk the way I do today. It was survival. I don't sound like matter of fact, I had several people say that to me when I first came here. You don't sound like you're from around here, boy. You know, and that was true to a degree. I had been gone for a lot of years. But I was back here every year. We came down to my grandmother's, and my grandfather had a farm. Grandfather Blaylock had a farm out on Armstrong Road. And that goes back a lot of years. And anyway, well, they would talk to me and taunt me a little bit about my accent up there. So I studied the way they talked, and I learned to talk like they did. And I can't get rid of it.
You talk a little bit like my uncle, who was raised here, went to California for several years and came back. It's still Southern, but has a little bit of a intellectual something
Different
to
tone
it.
to it.
Yeah, well,
But I don't notice it.
that's good.
So when you came back here, you were going to start putting in sectional garage doors?
Yes.
Was anybody doing it here?
No, not in Cleveland or Bradley County. King Door was the one who was doing it. I'm giving them some free advertising here. But they were the ones who were in the area, and they would come up when they needed extra work. They didn't really concentrate. And so nobody was actually in the business here. So I came down and did a little market study, spent 2 weeks here and talked to people and just surveyed the area to see if there could be an opportunity there. And it looked like room for growth was just phenomenal. So I decided to move back
Tell
here.
them about your first truckload of doors, though.
Oh, yeah. I had very limited resources back then. Started the company with an old truck, and
How old was Mark?
he was like 6, 7.
No, I was older than that because I was
Maybe.
in the 6th grade.
Oh,
So-
okay.
Yeah,
10,
I was
12?
in
Okay, yeah, 10, 12. Okay.
Where were you living?
My dad had bought a house over on Campbell Drive off of Georgetown Road.
So right across from Cleveland Middle.
Yeah, right across from Cleveland Middle School. And I rented that house from him for 8.5 years. And I built my building 2 years into being here. I rented from Don Ledford a mini warehouse, and then I rented 2,000 square feet in back of his office up there for a year. He raised my rent every year I was there, and I thought to myself, this is not smart. So I always consider myself to be halfway intelligent, so I decided to build a building. I went out looking for a piece of property, and I stopped in by Jimmy Kaywood, who was running a little grocery store out near Mount Zion Road back then. And
I can't think of where that's at.
well, if you know where
almost across.
precision flame hardening is?
Yeah?
Okay, out past it on the left. right by Mount.
Oh, a convenience store.
By
Yeah,
Wild-
Yeah.
Jimmy K. Wood had a
Yeah.
little convenience store. I stopped in there, and he happened to have a piece of property that he wanted to sell. And I did not understand where it actually was, because he told me it was at Georgetown Road and
Eureka.
Eureka. And I thought he meant the corner there. And I went over there and I said, there's no property there, for sale. And he said, no, it's Old Georgetown Road, which is over by Hopewell Baptist
Yeah.
Church, And so I wound up buying that property from Jimmy. And
How much was it?
back then, I think I paid $13,500 for 2.1 acres.
13,500
It was a
in
lot of
70 what?
In 79.
79.
It was a lot of money.
We
per
were
acre.
we were just getting ready to go to high school.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I built that building, and I couldn't do that today with all of the restrictions.
No, Lord,
and,
they'd crucify you for trying
Oh,
to build
yeah.
something.
but I was a general contractor basically on my own building.
You could do that. It's
Yeah,
a
I
nice
won't-
building.
I walked into the courthouse and I asked him, I said, I own a piece of property out here, which I had bought. I said, now I want to put a building up on it. And I had a drawing, I had drawn the plans for it. And I said, what do I have to do to get it zoned commercial? And they said, give us $15 and take out a
Building permit.
building permit.
Well, wasn't that so good for progress?
Oh,
And that's
well,
so good for progress.
It made it easy for me.
Yeah.
Because then I independently hired different people to do different aspects of the
Yes.
construction.
And you knew them. It
don't
wasn't
think I
like
got-
you weren't familiar with the construction business.
I don't think he paid me. I don't think,
Well, it's not like
He
you
would-
weren't familiar with
he
the
was-
tradesmen.
No,
he
mean,
set
you-
the trusses.
You can't be in this business in any aspect and not be pretty familiar with the whole thing.
Right.
well, I was a little familiar from Chicago. I learned a lot from those people up there, and that's another reason why I said what I said about not going into competition with them, because they taught me a lot about our industry. I learned it from some old world, literally, some Italian, some Polish, some Bohemian people, and one fellow from Norway rather. Al Albertson was a fine installer, and he ran a little satellite operation for us up in Chicago. But these guys taught me an awful lot about what I do. Now, I can tell you this now because it doesn't matter. But when I came here, I had never installed a garage door in my life.
Just done
Sold a lot of-
repairs.
No,
Nope.
I had done nothing. I
Oh.
was a salesman and I ran the company. And I taught seminars at the Drake Oak Brook in Oak Brook, Illinois, of how to install garage doors.
Never put
I'd
one.
never done one in my life.
Were you handy with your hands
Oh, yeah.
from birth?
Yeah, I could always wrench a car
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah. Used to build motors and things.
What about when you ordered your? Did you just put up a shingle? I'm gonna garage doors.
Well, when I started, this was funny. I had my office in my house there on Campbell Drive.
Now, where is Campbell Drive? I know
It's-
it's
You know where Crown Colony is?
Crown
across
Colony,
the
The
middle.
next street
The next
up.
street
to the right,
towards
Yes.
Paul Huff, to the right.
towards like before you
short
get
dead
to
end.
to
Weston
Lennox
Hills.
Hill.
Yeah,
Lennox
yeah,
Hill,
yeah.
It's
Went
right
in.
there.
yeah.
Anyway, I
It's just
had my
one block.
office in the corner of our dining room. I had a desk set up, the whole thing. And I'll never forget Barney Newport. Did you
Let's
know
see,
Barney?
Barney Newport. He
From
was on the
Charleston.
school board.
From
wasn't he?
Charleston.
Wasn't he the county commissioner or on the school board?
Up in Charleston, yeah.
Really well liked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was, he had one arm, I think.
Yep, one
Yeah.
arm.
Anyway,
I hadn't heard
he
that.
came down to to buy a door for me, and he came to what he was thinking was my office. And he came to the front door and rang the doorbell. And so I invited him in, him and his daughter, I think it was with him at the time. And they came in, and we sat there at the dining room table, and he ordered a door for me, or two actually. Anyway, and when he first came in, he was kind of confused. He said, "I thought this was a company." I said, "It is."
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's where I started, and I had the mini warehouse up here by Don Ledford. And what Mark alluded to earlier was the first truckload of doors I bought. I thought I could get a good buy if I bought in volume. Of course, I knew the suppliers from Chicago. I wound up being the purchasing agent up there for that company, a salesman, the purchasing agent, and the service manager. And when I left there, they hired 3 people to do my job. But
Did everything except install.
yeah. And anyway, that first order of doors, I ordered them the way I did in Chicago. That was a primed door. It was already primed for paint.
Wood, wood frame
Just a
masonite panel.
wood masonite panel door, primed for paint. Well, I had a whole truckload of these things, and nobody here wanted them. They wanted to stain the inside and paint the outside. So I had a selling job to do, and by the end of that first truckload, they were ordering prime doors because I had talked most of the builders that I was doing work for at the time into a product that I needed to sell. So
There may be those doors out there today
I know where.
that are still there.
I did a service call on one the other day, still had one of the original stickers with that 1929 Campbell Drive address on it. Still had the sticker
I know
on
where
it.
there are 2 up on Highway 27 going up to Spring City that were built under a balcony that they had built out over the front. And because they were protected from the weather, those 2 doors are still there.
There's still quite a few.
I know where you're talking about. It's got like an overhang,
yeah, right.
Extreme overhang.
Yes, yeah.
Let me ask you this. I started working for my uncle when I was 12, 14, Joe Wanby. I guess
Yeah, I
you
know
him.
Joe, yeah.
And I guess we started when I was, probably 78, 79 sweeping. But around 82, the economy got really bad, and we worked on an addition over in Hope Acres, which you were probably about that time getting moved into your building.
We
I'm
moved
guessing.
into the building in 79.
70, so you'd just gotten there.
Yeah.
When you started business there, like you mentioned, Doug Gay,
Yeah.
Bob Johnson, Randall Fisher, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Bob Kaler, Randall
Bob
Fisher.
Kaler, Alvin Goodwin.
Alvin Goodwin, yeah, I've done some work for Alvin.
And I knew all those guys. Jim Dugan,
Oh, yeah,
Randall Fisher,
yeah, Randall.
Larry Swafford.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Larry. I did work for Larry.
Boy, I can name those guys. I knew them like a book. I'll think of some more here in a minute. But that was during the 235 program.
Yes.
When they built all those houses for. I
Right,
think they would give the buyer a couple of $1,000s so they could make the down payment. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
But people, they were building. John Wilkinson,
I didn't know
I
him.
think he worked for Kalo, for Lynn Davis.
Oh, okay.
He was like
Yeah.
his. So that was.
Uh-huh.
Who else was a big builder back then? That built a lot. I mean, they just built houses. Just
Well, I know one guy that's still around today that built a lot of those 235 homes.
Ralph Rogers.
Ralph Rogers, yeah.
But I don't think, I'm not sure if he's living now.
No, he's
He was
not.
smart.
Yeah.
He was smart. Who
Yeah.
was it you're thinking of?
I was thinking about Jim Anderson, and Jim built, Barclay Guerin was a framing contractor.
Barclay, we went to school with his boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
Actually, my daughter married his son, Walker. My youngest is a Gary.
Yeah.
Your youngest daughter married Brian's daughter?
Yep.
What are the
Brian's
odds?
son. Yeah, Brian's son.
You
Walker.
could do worse.
So yeah.
Could you?
And
You could do worse.
At the wedding, I went up to Barclay and I said, "Don't let these two get married." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "I don't want to be related to you."
Who else was it that was built in that era?
I'm trying.
Because that was an era in the construction business from 77 to 85 that was just blow and go, and you built and
Yeah.
you just as fast as you can, right?
Put them up, and they were knocking them out. I think Barclay's crew could knock out. They were finishing a house, one a week. Boom, 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 just down the
They
line.
start framing and
Start framing, and
they'd have 4 or 5 of them going at a time.
yeah,
or
they'd
more.
have 4 or 5 of them going, and they'd have this block here, and they would just go down the line and finish them all off.
That was Rolling Brook, Timber Hills,
Yeah, Rolling Brook and
Hope Acres, I guess.
Hope. Yeah, there was quite a few of them built out there, I guess.
I guess Hope Acres was probably,
A little better.
yeah.
Yeah, a little better house.
No,
And then see
Yeah.
later 80s, when I started doing a lot of work for like Bob Kelly and them, they were at Mouse Creek,
Yeah,
you know, doing
down Shenandoah Lane.
Shenandoah.
yeah.
Cedarwood,
Yeah,
Mapleton. Mapleton was the
Mapleton.
big
yeah,
one.
Mapleton was a big one. I put a
Johnny
lot.
Eldridge.
Yes, John
Jim Eldridge.
Jim
Jim
Eldridge.
Eldridge.
Okay.
And
'Cause I was
then
just
his
thinking,
son
who was
John.
it that had
That's who we was
Anatole,
thinking
the
of.
property that Anatole's at? Wasn't it?
That was his
him.
son.
That was
Yeah.
his
But
son.
Jim
But Jim,
built
Jim-
out of both britches legs, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he built, man.
I
Yeah.
couldn't think of his name, but I was thinking,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
the
he
guy.
built them faster than you could
Anatole.
look at them.
Yeah, yeah,
And he developed West Eldridge Acres.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and East Eldridge.
Yep.
yeah.
And there's somebody else we're not thinking of, and I can't put my finger on it.
Well, one of the guys that was building a lot of nicer homes back then was Jim Sharp.
But that
That came later.
That's why I was saying 77 to 85 was that era. And then 84 to 90 was almost a transition period.
It was a lot of different
Yeah,
builders. you
it
had.
was.
And when the 90s hit, when we're me and you were sort of having to be in charge instead of just
Started
working
dealing
for
with it,
them,
right.
the building business absolutely changed to what was the 90s was the decade of the excess.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Custom.
you didn't have the ceramic tile, I
Custom
remember the
homes, it was
diamonds.
all-
Remember the diamonds on the ceramic tile? They had to be the same width that cut next to the tub.
It
That
was
was
all custom. Went from spec houses
It
basically.
went from
custom.
spec
Yeah,
houses.
spec houses
It went
to
from the
custom.
people saying, "Oh boy, this house has wallpaper," to this house doesn't have the right shade of commode.
Well,
Right.
see, those early
yeah.
doors, they didn't have garage door motors. You never put a garage door motor on a
Why
on a
you
house.
wouldn't have had?
And then finally, when I started, full time in the fall of 84, 85,
It was just start.
they'd say, "Well, I'll tell you what." I said, "Well, you want a motor on this, right?" No, but I tell you what, if the customer says something, I'll use that as a selling point.
Yeah, we used to do
We'll
that.
throw one in.
Me and you had that.
We'll throw one in.
It was like 253 or something like that. I remember.
Yeah.
If you want a remote,
Yeah.
it's $25.
So, we'll throw one in. We'll put so the builder would throw that in as an option.
But now the customer back then in the Doug Gaze era,
Yeah,
they were glad to get a house and thankful, and the husband would do a little work on the job to make the job better. in the 90s, that started stopping. And now in 2023, I haven't built a house in 15 years. We didn't put the mailbox up for them. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah.
that's how
How it's changed.
it's changed. Now back then, in the late 70s and early 80s, you wouldn't put a guy's mailbox up, right? I mean, that would be
No.
an offense.
They expect everything now. I mean,
Everything.
yeah, and they want it at the spec house price. For what
That's right.
Yeah.
Did you see when did you get out of the business?
In 2005.
So
I turned it over to
2005 was after that was before the recession.
Yes.
Or before 2008. Because
Yeah.
2008, it stopped.
Yes,
Everything.
It did.
For
Which we had, there was that one recession in the 80s, you know. And
me and you didn't know, we were too
No,
young to
but
know it,
In
right?
84, yeah.
Yeah.
84?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was helping out and doing some stuff, and I remember him having to lay off one or two guys.
In
That-
84?
That just stuck in my mind, you know. But
Remember that
It was
guy?
the year before I built my house, I think, or
you
maybe.
built your house in '85.
Yeah.
The year I got married, he said he made enough off of me not living with him and eating his food. He could build a house. So, but no, he built 85 the same year I got married. So.
Did you in 84 when you got out of high school? Did you go to college?
I went to Cleveland State,
How long?
just a semester.
Were you going?
And then
I went a day and a half.
Did you? I just went a semester. And in all honesty, I didn't even finish two classes. I had a full class load.
Do you think it was because me and you were raised eating out, driving to the job, no specific schedule, and
Mine was more. I was used to hard work. I mean, because after school, I'd go out to shop, assemble the doors, assemble the motors or whatever, get them ready for them for the next day. I was used to working all the time, and instead of sitting in an office, which I was doing drawings. I was studying being an engineer, electrical drawings and stuff, and some architecture. I was doing some architectural drawings, but man, sitting behind that desk, it just kind of drove me nuts after a while, and stuff. But
and being in the same place and seeing the same people drives me nuts. I had to
Yeah.
have a change of scenery.
well, that's why I love what we do. Where it's not like you even building a house. You got to go to that same house for, say, it takes you 4 or 5 months, even at the quickest.
6 months.
At the
yeah.
quickest,
Yeah.
a year. I mean, the average custom home I'm seeing now is at least a year. And I tell people that, if they told you 4 months, they're lying.
They're
6
lying.
months,
They're lying.
But I'm there half a day. I mean, if I'm hanging two doors and 2 motors, I'm there half a day. And then I'm to another job the other half the day. So I don't,
Well,
if I have to be on a job,
I haven't thought about that.
so I get a big change of scenery.
I bet I pass you on the road every 2 weeks or something, and we're passing, we're going, we're always,
just going.
it's just a different lifestyle.
It is.
You talk about passing on the road. Years ago, I had one truck, and I would drive from job to job, service call, hang a door, this, that, and the other, all over town. And people would tell me, I see your trucks all over town.
Get one at the
I
time.
had one
The
truck
same truck.
then, yeah.
You remember that? I remember back in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, you had that guy that worked for you forever. Redheaded guy. What was his name?
Not redhead. Bob worked for us forever. That was your cousin.
Bob Walters?
No, before that.
Oh,
Stansberry?
no,
No.
no, never.
Stacy?
Stacy
Stacy
Baker.
Baker.
He was a year
Stacy
ahead of us
Baker,
in school.
right.
Yeah,
Stacey
Whatever
Baker.
happened to him?
He lives in Florida.
yeah. He moved
He
down
lives
to
in Florida. He was.
He was with y'all like glue.
He stayed with us for quite a few years, but the woman he was with wound up going to Florida, and he went with her. And he wasn't doing doors down there though. He was doing
Well, he worked for y'all for how long?
about 8, 9 years.
8, 9 years, yeah.
Pretty good while.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
He was there every day,
Yeah.
wasn't
Yep, yep.
You and him and
And
Ian.
then Dad's cousin worked for us for a lot of years, because
Yeah.
I worked side by side with him for a lot of years.
What was it? Who was
I had
that?
a- I had
Bob
a-
Elliott.
I had a first cousin by the name of Bob Elliott. He was a retired police officer from Miamisburg, Ohio. And he came down here and he needed something to do, so
He
we
retired down here.
we hired him on.
And his mom was here and stuff, so.
Did
Yeah.
you see the customers change?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Give me a kind of a how they were versus how they were
Well-
as up to 2005.
When I first came to town, there was an atmosphere of local people deal with local people, and that was it. If you were from an outside like I was, I had to prove myself to them. Matter of fact, you talk about Doug Gay, that first door I put in, I had a bunch of builders drive by that same house. It's out in, what's the name of that?
Camelot.
Camelot. Anyway, they all drove by to see the kind of a job I did before my phone would ring. They wanted to see what I had done. Because he had a job that I think 2 door companies had turned him down. They said it couldn't be done. And I put that door in.
Was that the special arched openings on a
No,
Spanish style house? or-
No,
Okay.
this was a low headroom
Oh, that
door
was-
that I didn't have a low headroom track for. I more or less built one. And it wasn't easy that day. I worked very hard on
Get to
that first
custom
job.
make the railing.
Yeah, had to cut everything to fit everything, trim the door a little, put extra molding up. Anyway, I made it work, and when they saw that, then my phone started ringing after that first order.
Back then, a lot of builders knew the other builders, and they,
And Bob Gay held a lot of weight.
Oh,
Did-
Doug
Doug-
Gay,
Doug
yeah,
Gay.
yeah.
I did an operator for her, his widow.
Is that right?
Yeah, about 6 months
I don't
ago.
know what happened to him.
She lives over off of Free Will.
I think he had cancer and it got him.
It may be, because
I
I know her
believe that-
daughter has cancer right
Yeah, I
now.
believe
She's got-
that's what happened to
I
Doug.
used to go down to John Kinder's every Saturday, and I'd stay there from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And Doug Gay, Alvin Goodwin, Randall Fisher, all those guys would come down there. And it was a world of knowledge. I mean, just sit and listen to those guys. But it was a different era.
Yeah, well, let me
was.
tell you about Randall Fisher. He stayed, him and Bob Kaler, from the first time they ordered a door from me, they stayed my customer until they died, literally. And I appreciated that very
Randall
much.
Fisher was like that.
Yeah, he was very loyal
And Bob Kaler, if you messed up, that was it,
yeah.
right? I mean,
Well-
that was it.
I'd never had a problem with Bob. He was always real good. He liked to come out and get a cup of coffee out at the shop. he would always come in for his cup of coffee.
They said, the old story is that he had somebody come up, a realtor, and said, they'll buy your house if you'll do so-and-so. And he ripped the contract up and said, I won't buy it, the people behind you'll buy it. You know, he was really kind of a brute. I knew him, but he was kind of a Sam Hyler. I'm thinking of somebody else. I can't think of the guy's name. Isn't that weird? But there wasn't any other garage door people in town, right? You were doing the thing that nobody did.
Yeah, at the time, there were companies that would come up from Chattanooga, overhead door from down there, Northgate or one or two. But nobody here was doing what I did.
Was it all you could do to get around all the time? I mean, we're talking about in the late 70s up until 2000. It was wasn't it all you could do to get the garage doors in? I mean, how many are there in a week's time? 10?
Well, it would depend. I would go to Atlanta. I had to go pick up my doors back then.
I remember that. You used to say, well, I'll go to Atlanta today or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I used to go once a week when I first started.
And pick up the
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah, well,
I'd
we
go
had
get
a 25-foot straight truck. We would come back with, 15,
30.
20 doors, 30 doors on it.
30 doors on it.
Yeah.
And now, since you've been out, we had 2008, which everything collapsed and nobody even did anything.
Right. And the building of that building that I've referenced earlier, when I built my building in '79, if we hadn't done that, we might be out of business today.
Because of the '08. Because, I mean, nobody built, I think it's 2009, the banks wouldn't even loan, so you
No.
couldn't build a spec house at all.
You couldn't-
No.
you
I mean,
couldn't
I
build
did a few
anything.
customs. I did one spec house, and I asked the guy. I said, "How are you building this?" And he said, "Out of my pocket." He said, "I had savings, He said, "So I'm building it, because nobody else is building it."
And I bet it didn't end well.
But, I don't know.
If you could,
But
Probably not.
yeah, I mean, I almost closed the doors. Of course, that's after he retired. He's out of it. Things were still going really strong in '05. 05,
Oh, yeah.
06, 07. I mean, we're
up into '06, if you think the economy was good 2 years ago, it wasn't compared to '06. It was all you could do.
yeah.
So me and Mark know this, and you may not be aware. We can't express to you how bad '08, '09, and '10 was. Am I right?
Well, he came out because I'm like, you got to come out and look at this because I don't know how it can stay in business. I mean, in all honesty, if it stays the way it's going, the only thing that kept me going really was some of the old wood doors that he put in back in the '70s were rotting out. And a few of those
And we
people would
did-
put them in.
And that was
it's
break
some
even,
service.
right?
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, it was break even.
I was still going in the hole. I went in the hole for quite a few months.
Yeah.
I mean, unreal to where I walked in his house. I said, listen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep doing this.
In '09, it got so bad. I was building a fast food restaurant, and I had a doctor's office, a doctor's plaza survey, and a doctor's office survey in the ground. So at the end of '08, when everybody was talking about the bad economy, I thought that was the bad builders, not me. In October the 17th of 2008, both of them called me and canceled the same day,
Wow.
October the 17th.
Wow.
So I was stuck with that fast food restaurant in Chattanooga. And I had all my guys, I had top-rated carpenters putting shelves in by the end of January. And by February the 15th, they told me that the bank had cut them off and they couldn't pay me. And I was down $126,000.
Wow.
And because this is related to what you're saying. So by February the 15th to March, I had done all the, how you have stuff that you're wanting to do when you can get caught up.
Right.
I had done everything. I mean, from, fixing stuff at my house, I had done everything. And I had they ran an ad in the newspaper. They were going to build a bathroom out at Waterville Golf Course. And so I met out there at 8 o'clock in the morning. There were 23 general contractors there.
Wow.
And we were all walking to the site, and I was walking out through there, and my shoes were getting wet because it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, is this what it's come to?
Gonna be, yeah.
Because I was, I was turning down jobs.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so I was walking through the grass, and the architect was barking orders. And it was whoever was going to lose 5,000 or 10,000 was going to get the job. And my phone rang. And it was this guy that I had done some jobs for in the past. And he said, do you know, because a lot of people didn't know the economy was bad at that point, but I had already, and he said, Dee, do you know anybody that can put some windows in my house? And I said, this guy lives way down at McDonald. I mean, the last place you can go before you get to Bradley and get out of Bradley County. And I said, well, we're going to be down in that area next week. I bet he wondered what in the world we was going to be doing there. I said, we can probably get to it. And so I went down there and I did that. And I think I paid everybody. We were there like 3 weeks. We ate Mexican at the Ottawa restaurant. And I said to myself, I'm going to have to do small jobs because these big jobs, there's too much competition. And I've got too many people that are going to call me anyway. I'll just do small jobs and I'll make $100 a job.
Right.
From then till the end of the year, I did 110 small jobs, ranging from $40 to $12,000, and made $151,000,
Wow.
and ran my ass off.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah, you stayed in business.
I stayed
You
in
there.
business,
Yep.
and so that's what you were saying.
Yep.
If it weren't for those maintenance jobs
Yeah.
that normally you would have just,
I probably wouldn't have been able to get to them.
You wouldn't have
because
been able to
we're
get
doing
to
so
it.
many homes.
Because you
know.
were too busy.
you wouldn't have even been
Right.
responsive to the call because you
Right.
couldn't in 06.
Right.
Yeah, it was a different time.
It was a
There
different
was,
time.
And there was one or two other door guys I talked to, and they lost their shirt, in 09. And fortunately, I didn't have a lot of people that owed me money because I pretty much kept that. Once you get into me for a couple houses, I'm not going to do another one.
Yeah, two and a
But-
half, two in your
Yeah.
really one.
So, but yeah, there was some of them that 10 houses. One guy, it was like 25, 30 grand. He never got paid for.
Did you ever have anybody that didn't pay you through that time that just still hadn't paid you?
Not because of that. No. No, I never. I was fortunate. Lord blessed us.
Yeah, I
But-
only had one customer that didn't pay me
I've had several.
in 29 years.
I've had one,
I've had
just
several.
one.
I've
He
had
went
one.
bankrupt, and it was okay.
Yeah,
He
Most
didn't-
of them.
It was
This is
no
all-
problem.
Usually
Yeah.
somebody I know.
With the fast food restaurant,
It's somebody you wouldn't think would never pay you. It was a small job, and you've known them for 25 years.
it's almost it's not the money. It's like, am I putting my faith in these people? Am I that
It's the
stupid?
principle
So-
of
It's
the
the
thing.
principle.
Yeah.
But that guy ended up paying me back for that restaurant. I got every dime of it back. It was
Did
it
you
was
really?
like it was
Well-
like a year and a half later, and I always respected him for paying because the bank cut him
I
off.
had one
Wow.
guy that he was doing trim work a lot, but then he started trying to build, and he owed me some money, but he don't owe me a lot. But he said I will pay you, which I thought, well, we'll see. But he did. He wrote me a check for $50 a month
God.
for like
Yeah.
10
and
months
that's-
till he got it paid off.
Man, you got to
mean-
take your hat off to that
Yes,
guy.
I mean,
Because
yeah,
that
respect
is
it.
ethical.
Yep.
That's right.
That's the ethical thing to
The
do.
one thing about McSpadden Garage Doors, nobody's ever said anything about, and I've used y'all for years, and you're the subcontractor that there's no question. It is what it is. There's no issues, never has been any issues. And I think that comes back from maybe something you were taught.
Well, up in Chicago, when I got into this business, they stressed cleaning up the job when you're done. Don't leave a mess behind, which we've always done. And that's something that I've always had this saying at our company, we leave the job better than we find it. And
So just take 10 minutes and clean it up.
Yeah.
We do. And
Right.
we're one of the only subs that actually, we take all of our garbage off.
we haul it
All
off.
the cardboard, the doors wrapped in, all the boxes, the wrapping, the foam,
Everything.
it all goes with us. And then my grandson, I've had him out there this summer sweeping the jobs when we're done. So that's actually fourth
You know-
generation that's been working.
I wonder if that doesn't save tools, because you say, oh, we forgot this wrench.
Oh yeah.
When you clean up, you're
Yeah,
actually
clean up.
picking up tools.
I had one lady. She said, "Hey, you need to talk to my husband because he won't sweep." I said, "Well, don't tell my wife I'm sweeping this."
Yeah, that's a job. It's different.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, we always clean up. Take it with us.
On the courthouse square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
The building business has evolved, obviously.
It has changed dramatically since I moved to town here, in the respect that we went from, like you were saying, building spec homes, and people were glad to get them. And now it's all custom built, and like you were saying, more demanding clients. And the quality of the homes is obviously, been brought up, the level of quality.
The codes and stuff, of course,
Yeah.
you know how strict they've gotten
Yeah.
now. I mean, because, before you had 2 inspections, electrical maybe and a septic,
You had septic, and you'd get a building permit that inspect the footing, and
Yeah.
then you'd have electrical, and that was it.
Yeah, Gene Black, when he inspected
Black.
my house, he came in and he only found one item that I needed to change. And he just looked at me and he said, "I know you're going to do that."
And you did.
Yeah, yeah.
It was called Gene Look the Other Way, Riley. Gene. But I don't know
Gene
that
was
there were any less.
Oh no, he was good.
Yeah, they. I guess maybe they knew. I don't know. Sometimes these inspections now, I mean, some stuff that they're requiring, I guess it's for, if you do anything in the name of safety, it's hard to argue it.
Yeah, and
Handrails and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Smoke and.
well, the steps, the height on the steps and the head. When you go into a basement, you put
Yeah.
a staircase or
Yeah.
something, you head.
And there's a lot of
Flares.
houses out there that you have to go like this
Oh, yeah.
downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know now in the garage that if you're parking a car in the garage and there's living space upstairs, you have to have 5/8 sheetrock
It
overhead?
doesn't matter even if you're not part of garage. If you do a garage door, it's got to have fire rate sheetrock on any living space. So, because we're not doing basement garage doors anymore. I mean, people aren't, you always stuck a basement garage door. You always stuck a door in a basement somewhere you pull your lawnmowers or
Yeah.
whatever. They're not doing it anymore because they have to do all that. They have to put all that fire rate sheetrock and stuff like that.
Right.
So they're doing like a double walk-through door is all they're doing. And having just access, but they're not.
And that's hard because how are you going to put 5/8 sheetrock overhead and put all those tracks?
But it's not really
just-
that's not the issue as much as just the cost of that fire rate sheetrock because you got to do the whole basement or you got to build a little room for on that garage door. And so we do a few of those. We do a few of them, but most of the time I've lost out now on a lot of garage doors just because of that.
I'm building one right now that they said that if I put a residential sprinkler system in the basement, then I don't have to have that. So I guess that means two heads that will spray down.
No, I've done a few. I've done four jobs where the basement didn't have any of the fire rated sheetrock on it. And I'm like, how y'all getting away with this? I said, well, look, we're putting in the sprinkler system, and it's actually what looked like to me it was going to be pegs and little heads, and I'm like, I would think that'd burn. Of course, I don't know about
You would
pegs.
think,
Yeah.
but that's not.
But I guess once it detects it though and it melts that sensor, it's going to spray it all before it would, do it all anyways.
Well,
and
if
that
it
water
melts
line would
it,
be going.
if it melts it, the water's gonna
But I'm
come
like,
out.
because originally when they first put that code before the board, it was going to add $5,000 to every house. And they're like, we can't do that. So then they went to fire rated sheetrock and they kind of did that. Of course, I think that's like $3,000 half the time on average.
Yeah, and probably a mess. And
Because you got to finish it all, you got to caulk it all.
how do you finish
run
it
the
next to
pipes.
the block wall? How do you end
They built
it?
boxes down, and then I can't get my garage door in. They built
And then,
boxes
and
around
then
the
so
water
many
lines
times
and
you got a
sit through
P-trap
there.
from upstairs
Yep.
that's down in the way.
Yeah.
It's just making it, this policy and this policy, they can't seem to mesh. it's getting in the way of
It's
itself.
hard with all the codes, like I said. Of course, I've got several people that wound up building in Polk and McMahon because they don't have those
They
restrictions.
built a house like we did in the
They don't have
90s.
those restrictions, yeah.
I don't think it's less
The
safe.
thing is,
do you?
though, well, I will say this: when I was putting in some doors back in '08, especially when everybody and their brother was building houses. I mean,
Yeah.
friends I went to high school with that don't know anything about building it were like, "Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm building a house. We're
Yeah.
building a house." Well, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, and I saw stuff that there's no way I'd ever buy that house. Because I saw the way it was built.
Yeah.
But back then the codes weren't that much. So it has helped on some of that aspect. Of course, I kind of see a change this last year to 2 years of going from everybody building customs to these massive spec homes. And that's your big companies.
The big
coming
company,
in.
and that's almost how it's
in.
gonna. I see that as the way it's gonna evolve, don't
a
you?
lot of it.
And
I do.
some of those large tract homes like that are well-built and some of them aren't.
Some of them are not, and you don't know that unless you're in our business.
Yeah,
Right.
And if we were to tell somebody, they'd think we was being jealous or something.
yeah,
but
well, but it's just the fact, when you see the different stages of construction and you know what should happen and what does or does not happen, you can determine for yourself the quality of the end product,
And we've got enough trouble trying to do the right thing to not have some issues. I mean,
Yeah.
you got mistakes
Yeah.
still.
Yeah,
Well, we always try to do a good quality product that we're not going to have to worry about, for years. I mean, he started, quality doors and services. I mean, and so you put one in and you expect it to last, 20 years or better, and I mean, because you've got some we did that are still going, yeah. So, and I've had salesmen come in, hey, we've got this new motor, we fully expect it to last 5 years.
yeah,
I'm like, I can't put that in.
Yeah.
I said, I get people all the time come up and said, hey, would you come by and lubricate my door? It's squeaking a little bit. I said, okay, yeah, you just put it in. I said, well, what year? Well, it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just started thinking
you
about
just
it
put
because,
it in, yeah.
But, and of course, the other aspect of it is nobody uses their front door anymore because you get electric motors on all
Right.
of them. Everybody comes and goes through the garage.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
right.
do you go in and out your front door?
Never.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Say
Never.
example. And it's one of the last things to go in the house. So it's always they don't have any money left.
Yeah,
Right.
So they're like, I need the cheapest thing you got. I said, you got to realize this is going to be something you're going to be using every day. And I had one the other day, and the average spring nowadays from a factory is about 10,000 cycles. Okay, you do the math. If you go in and out
So
of
in other
twice,
words, it'll last
10,000
10,000
ups and downs.
10,000 up and down.
So if you go out once in the morning, once at night, your wife goes out once in the morning, once at night. Okay, that's 4 times a day. I mean, do that 365 times a year. It's 1,400 something. Do it. So that's going to last you, 7 years.
And the
gonna
spring's going to break.
And the
yeah.
spring is going to
So
break.
we're seeing an average of 8 to 10 years. Now, you usually get a little bit better than 10,000 cycles on most of them, but the cheaper doors, you won't. But so I tried to do a replacement spring, more like 14,000. But I had a gentleman the other day, and he said, hey, he called me up and said, hey, I got a broken spring. And I said, okay, I looked it up. It was 4.5 years old is all it was. I'm like, do you use this door a lot? He said, 20, 25 times a day. I got 3 kids. They all drive. We don't use the front door. So, it's going up and down like a yo-yo. So I put out a spring that was going to be 15,000. It's the only one I had in stock that was better. So he said, well, I'll get a couple more years before the next one breaks.
Do they make springs better now than they did?
It depends on who you buy them from.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are coming over from China now that are awful. I wouldn't buy them,
Like the
stuff,
tensile
just 'cause-
strength or something like that?
Yeah. And then, but they make everything a little bit cheaper and a little bit cheaper. So there's some companies out there only doing like a 7,000 to 8,000 cycle life when you get a new door, But I try to do at least a 10,000 cycle or more,
I had one competitor that was doing 5,000 cycle life
And
years ago.
That's
And-
not that long, right?
No. I mean, it'd be there 2 or 3 years, and they'd get to the warranty period, and maybe another year. Or
some of
two.
those new builders that back in 08 and 09 too, they were like, well, just get me through the year warranty. And I said, I'm not that guy.
No.
I said, I'm not that guy. I said, but here's my door. Here's the least inexpensive one that I would sell, and, here's the product, and so, you know, and I had a few of them buy them and a few of them didn't, you know, naturally. So
And the garage doors, they're like $500 now, aren't they?
yeah, not even close. I mean, they're so much more.
How much are they now?
I mean, the cheapest one's probably $1,000, you know.
Is that
and,
right?
Yeah.
I remember,
Installed, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I remember putting in 2 9x7s with a row of glass for Bob Kaler, installed for $504, 2 doors,
No opener.
no opener.
Didn't the openers used to be like $250?
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, 125 at one point when you were in business, weren't you?
195.
195.
Yeah, 195, and then they've gone up exponentially.
What's an opener cost?
The
now?
least expensive one I've got now, which is not the cheapest one you can buy naturally, but it's $466 installed, tax and all. Comes with one remote. 466.
No keypad.
No keypad, no.
See, years ago, the companies would throw in a keypad if you bought a pallet of openers.
Yeah.
And so we could give them away. You can't do that
They
anymore.
don't do that anymore. They don't do
Because
that kind of
they
stuff
don't
anymore.
give anything away today.
How many garage? I always, when people move in and say, "We don't have a garage door open," I call you and say, "Where's the?" It's on top of the garage door. Remember, you just put them out there.
Yeah, you stick them up there in the kitchen cabinets. We
Yeah, in
did
the
a lot of
kitchen,
that,
above
yeah.
the refrigerator?
Yeah, above the refrigerator, yep.
Yeah, or in the,
Yeah, because then people don't walk off with them when I stick them up there.
That's
usually,
right.
You know, the cleaning lady finds them, sets them on the counter right at the very end. You know.
I had one. The guy, I built a house, and he said, "Hey, I can't find my garage door opener. The electrician must have thrown it outside." Now, why would the electrician throw it outside? It's,
Yeah.
You know, it may not be there, but the electrician didn't throw it outside. I get so irritated at that.
I had one, and this one, the only reason I found this out was because in one of the houses that I purchased, above the kitchen cabinets, when I was painting and cleaning, you know, redoing this place, I found the trim, the rubber seal that goes around the door, laid up there. The painter, apparently, it's
How
put
long
up
had
there.
it been there?
9.5 years. The house was 9.5 years old. And it's still, to that day, when I walked in, it never had it on it. I put it in as brand new seal, you know. But I had one builder come up and say, "Hey, the remotes aren't in the kitchen cabinet." And I said, "Well, they should be." I said, "If not, you know, I'll swing by there."
Yeah.
I started looking. Because of that, I looked on top, and they were there.
Is that right?
Yeah, the cleaning lady or something had put them up there.
It's hard to explain how this. What will you put in? 5 doors a week?
It depends on the jobs, but some jobs, a lot of jobs now have 2-3 doors on them. You know, your homes. I mean, I did one the other day that had 5 doors on it on one
So
house.
you'll do what?
So that'll be-
How many
that'll
doors
be
could
day.
you do generally in a day?
Usually we probably do like 4 a day.
Yeah.
Of course, we're
4
still
a day?
small.
That's 2 before
but-
lunch and 2 after.
I've been trying here lately to do like one job, which will either have 1 or 2, or maybe sometimes 3 doors on it in the morning, and then just run some service in the afternoon, so people aren't waiting on service. You know, try to
Do
get
you
service
find
quicker.
that in 08, when you started doing more service, that you build up a service business more so than you would have in
Oh yeah,
06?
yeah. The phone rings all the time. I mean, and it's service.
Before 08, you didn't even think about service.
You still
right?
got service.
Well,
You did. Yeah, you still got service, but it wasn't the amount of volume. But there's so many more doors in Cleveland now.
That's true.
see,
So,
yeah, you've got
you
a much vaster array of product out there too.
You could about make a living. Could you make a living just doing service?
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
you sure could. Yeah, and you'd be just one guy, small, be in your truck by yourself, you know, whatever. But you could do it. And I never went large, you know, because after the 08 recession and stuff, I mean, you had 3 or 4 crews or whatever, and trucks going everywhere and stuff. I never went back large.
How many did you have in 07?
We had 3 crews at one time.
Yeah.
Golly.
Had
It's not worth it, is
crews.
it?
And, you know, between the trucks and tires, all the because you're burning the roads up, the fuel.
Yep.
I mean, and then the guys' time, you know, and stuff matching their, you know, all their taxes and all the stuff.
And doing the paperwork.
Headaches and those and I know nobody's gonna do it like I'm gonna do it because it's my business. The same thing with my son, you know, and dad, you know,
Yeah.
because it's our business. But most of the guys that we have had work for us, see the quality that we try to do and the pride that we have in our, how it does. So they work harder, but when I tried to hire a couple guys that knew garage doors, that hung garage doors like out of Florida, they moved up there, whatever. They would cut corners, and then you got service. You have to go back.
You have to go
because
back on
you go back.
everything.
Now I'm fine to go back and adjust something a little bit if something settles or does or something or
Yeah.
squeaks or whatever. But when you're gonna start having to go back and back and back because they're not doing it the way I told them to do it.
Or maybe even
'Cause
put
they're
it
cutting
in
corners.
crooked and you got to do more adjustments than just to.
Yeah. So I told my son, my son, I told him, if you want to go big after I'm done, that's fine. I said, but I'm not going large because once you go large, you really got to go over the big commercial. We do small commercial. I don't do the real big stuff anymore. Like Wright Brothers back then we did
Years ago.
22 by 20s, and they
I did
go
Vulcan
6 foot up.
Materials and Wright Brothers.
Haven't we done some of Easy Autos, right?
Yeah.
But
That's a small
That's a
commercial.
small commercial.
Yeah,
The size doors is what determines the
Yeah.
difference. Once you get over square footage 16 by 16, 20 by 14, that I really don't have the equipment anymore and the manpower to handle that large.
And there's no
product.
need. You got enough
So-
doing that.
Right. I got so much doing the other, and I'd rather do service and smaller residential and.
Do you think that the building business is slowing down now? Can you tell?
I can tell. In the last 2 months, I can tell more, really.
I
in all
can
honesty.
too. I've noticed some of the subs that are normally too busy are not 2 months out now. They're a couple of weeks out. That's a big deal.
It is.
well, you know what happened in America here, this last run-up of home prices and car prices, everything. There were pockets of building that went on, like in Phoenix and out in California and Las Vegas and Florida, that the prices went up 40, 50% over, and some places actually doubled cost of a home. And here, we didn't have that much of a run-up. We're not going to experience as bad a time when these home prices come down this year, I don't believe.
What would you think they'll come down? Do you think they'll just kind of like correct about 15%?
Yeah,
maybe?
here, yeah. But there are parts of, like Austin, Texas, they're in trouble, I think, with their home building out there. They've overbuilt, and they've got homes there and in Phoenix. Phoenix is another one, and Las Vegas. I've watched those markets pretty carefully over the last year or two. And what I've seen is there are blocks of brand new homes that builders are selling off to people to rent a brand new home rather than, because they can't sell them. With the economy,
The interest rate, though.
the interest rate and the price of the home.
See, what do you think the average house is now? I mean, price of the average home in Cleveland is now.
You know, I've
a new home.
I've sort of lost touch in a way, but I think probably 225 is probably the average, I'm guessing.
See, well, I'm talking about a brand new home.
I'm thinking 225. Now there may be 275, right?
I don't see. They were going most of those spec houses that I was doing were now 2.5 years ago, 229. Okay, they're 389 now.
See, there's just no way.
And,
Well, you
and
can't
then
pay that.
they were going to that same home, the exact same home with a basement was going for around 400 to 420. It was at 489. Well, now they're backing back off of that because that same house around 400,000, you add instead of 3% interest, you added 6.5%. It's adding $700-800 a month or more to their mortgage. They can't afford it.
Well, right now,
It's not going to work.
unless you have stellar credit right now, you can't get a 6.5 mortgage.
No,
It's going to be 7.9 or,
I'm not so sure if it might not be closer even to 8.
yeah.
I mean, it's
I know one of the guys that was building some houses. He said, yeah, he said the average house I was building. He said, they were about a $2,300 house payment, and he said it's all of a sudden 3,000 to 3,100, the same house. I see them now, and the ones they're actually studying up now. I notice they're a little smaller and a little smaller. They're going instead of 2,500 square foot, they're backing it back down like 2,200 square foot or less. Because the average homes, I mean, you start looking at the price of a new home is $200 to $236 a square foot.
And if you look at the
I just can't wrap my head around it.
what the average person earns, I'm talking factory worker or blue collar
Yeah.
people. If you look at what they earn and how can they afford a $75,000 truck and a $400,000 house?
Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, say in Cleveland, the Lenox Hills era, and people were building 3,500 square foot houses
Oh yeah.
with a bonus room for the pool table, and they even started having the parlors, not the living room, not the dining room, but the waiting room, like they were in, like some kind of a rich princess or something. And it did not matter what it cost. They would just keep going till they just,
Well,
and I'm seeing that now in our society, and I'm just seeing I'm seeing this new generation as saying, you know what, we're just not going to spend 30 years paying for a bonus room over our garage. We want to go hiking at Ball River Falls, and we want to go to Europe for the weekend and take some really nice pictures and do some good hiking. That's what they're thinking. But when we grew up, it was how big of a house can you get,
Right.
and how the button down collars and just trying to it was all about business and how you can make your life better. But this new people come now. I've often thought of this. This gets my crazy thinking. But if you were born in 1920 or 1918, and the Depression hit in 1929, and you saw your dad lose his job, lose his farm, et cetera, couldn't get a job. That guy was maybe 15, 16 years old. And then, as soon as they came out of that, they sent him to World War II. Then they sent his kids to Vietnam.
yeah.
That guy's about 92 today, 93. Those people would not borrow money for toilet paper.
They were a different mindset.
Different mindset. Now, fast forward to 2007, 2006. You borrowed 110% of the value of your house,
Yeah.
plus the closing costs. You had enough to put in a swimming pool and buy a new car. Then they came up in 2009 and they said, we've reappraised your house. It's appraised at 300. You owe 320. We need to be 80% loan to value. We need you to bring in $40,000.
Right, exactly.
So they take the money that they were going to put their swimming pool in with, the money they were going to send their college on, and the money they were going to go on the vacation, and they paid the house down. Now, that father that had a son that was 15 years old then saw that. And when you're 15, 16 years old and you're a son, you understand what your father's going through. You may not be totally sympathetic, but you know what he's going through. Do you realize that we're doing business today with that boy, and he's not going to go in debt, and he's not going to build a 4,000 square foot house, and he's not going to have a long-term commitment because he's that same guy. It might not be as traumatic as the depression, but in his mind, it is as traumatic. So they did a study the average house from the time that they recorded it till now, the average size of a house is 1,650 square feet. Sometimes smaller, sometimes larger. So my theory is the 3,000, 4,000 square foot house is going to back down to about 1,650 square feet, which will give you 3 bedrooms, 2 full baths, a living room and a dining room and a hall.
Right.
And a nice front porch and a nice deck.
It needs a garage.
Well, a garage. But beyond that, they're just not going to get a long-term mortgage. And if you say, and so in my mind, that's about a $225,000 house with a lot.
Well, see, the condos now they're selling, are $240,000, about $230,000 to $240,000. The condos, and the bigger ones, a little bit bigger one, 3-bedroom one, whatever, is $289,000. And then if you get the nice brick ones, the new ones that are going in, $349,000
Right.
and $389,000. And a 900 square foot house, they're building a bunch of little ones in town now. 900
That's
to
what I've
1,100.
been building, and
Okay.
and I love them.
And those are selling for $289,000 to
Well,
$320,000.
and they need to be selling for $140,000,
Right.
and the builder just make $20,000 and let it go. This idea of these builders making $50,000 so they can buy
everything.
a car and a magic boat, you can't do all that. People can't pay for. Now, even if you had a house payment that was $3,000, now you got insurance and you got electric bill and you got all the stuff that goes with it. You're $3,500 a month. So people spend about a fourth of their household expenses of their income. So that means they're making 15,000 a month? Or what would that be? 30, say $4,000 times 4, 12,000. Who's making?
About
Who's
13 grand a month, yeah.
Who's making that?
No,
Yeah.
see,
Now-
that's the point.
That's the point. Now, if you say, well, they can make it, who's paying them? Are they hanging stoves at Magic Chef for that? No. Are they working at convenience store? No. Are they teaching school? No. Are they the assessor of property? No. It's just not mathematically possible. It will not work.
That's the dilemma this country is in right now, the whole country. Now, there are pockets that are better and worse. of course.
Always is.
Always is.
But we can't go
But-
by
But
that.
see, but like you said, back in 07, and 06, when everybody was just doing everything. My son got married in 06, okay? He went into the bank, because he wasn't going to pay rent.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I'm going to buy a place. Before I get married and we move out, we're going to buy a place. He goes into the bank, and he said, I just started, he'd worked for Magic Chef doing electrical jobs, but then he came to work for me when Dad, and then once Matt came in the door, Dad said, I'll see you guys later. But he knew I had somebody
Yeah.
good. But anyways, so he was just started working for me. His wife just started being a dental assistant, okay? So their income. Bank looked at them, and back then they were loaning money, like you said, 110%. You qualify for a $300,000 house. My
think
son
they
looked
told
at him and he said, "You're crazy." He said, and of course his wife now she's
Yeah,
like,
she was, yeah,
"Great,
yeah. Right.
let's go get one." He
Yeah.
said, $100,000 is the max I can afford. In 06, he said, "This is it. $100,000 is the max I can afford." Because and neither one of them had a car payment. They both had 2 cars they were driving that were paid for. But he's thinking, okay, if one of the cars goes down, we got to buy a car. And if something else happens, if they have a kid, So, but he said, "There's no way." So they bought a house for $99,000.
Yep.
And a lot of people didn't. They bought the 300,000.
They bought the 300,000.
And that's what happened in
Well, I had
08.
friends. I had
That's
friends that
exactly.
built houses. Friends that we went to high school with and stuff. Okay, they built house. They were building houses. I still live in the same house out there. And my wife's like, why don't we build a house like them? Well, one of them built a house. It cost them $355,000. Okay, and then a year and a half later, like you said, it was worth $250,000. They had to live in it till about 4 years ago before they could get their money back out of it.
Boy.
I mean, and that's just getting their original investment back out. So, but yeah, I said you can't do it.
And then it went up 20% or 25%, But I think it's going to come back now
Yeah.
to
I see it inching back off, and if you
It's not
notice
gonna
houses,
go back down to where it was, but it is going to come back down.
I have this theory that real estate goes up 2% a year. And if you go 2% times 2%, that's compounded, so it's 2%, 2%, 2%. So in 09, 08, things did not go up. So in 09, that would have been about 15 years ago, right?
Yep.
So you multiply 2% times 15 years, that's about 30%. So all they did was rubber band back to where they should have been,
Right.
because because things always go up about 2%. You're guaranteed 2%. So it just went up that 18%. Now it's going back down to about that 30% more than it was then. But anytime you exceed that, it's going to come back to where it is. Always better than where it was, but not. You know what I'm
do
saying?
you think Cleveland's going to fare better if this does go down quite a bit? Do you think Cleveland will fare better than the rest of the country?
Here's what I think. And this is a wild theory.
I've got one of those.
But this is what I think. I think that the increase in the population of the world and the United States is going to start decreasing. And every business, I think, is based on an increase in people and business and income is going to be corrected, because your parents had how many kids?
3.
3. That was unusual. They're probably more like 6 and 5.
7. Yeah.
Me and you will have 2. Good chances are mine and your kids may not even get married. And if they do, they may have 1 or...
I had 3. All of them are married.
But
It cost me a lot.
With those 2 daughters.
But what I'm saying is, my
they
kids,
don't.
my kids maybe you had kids younger.
I
than
did. I
but
did.
I just don't think we're getting as many people as we were.
Not
And-
No,
families. no.
the national population has, for the first time in history, decreased in America.
That is, I have been thinking that, and even when
That's
you
a
get out
fact.
on the roads, you can't judge the world by Paul Huff. You got to look at it broadly, and there's just not as many people coming along, and they're just not interested. It's too expensive. It takes away their freedom, and this new age group that's coming up, they're more interested in enjoying life versus us trying to
Well,
make
that's
a
like
living.
my 3 kids, Matt has 1, okay? And so I got 1 grandson. They only have 1, that's all they're going to have.
That's right.
My middle daughter, she has 2, that's it. They're done.
Between the 2, that's 1.5. If you average that
The
out,
3rd one doesn't have any, and really no plans on it
so you
right now.
so you take that for a few years and stopping this immigration. That's one thing. That's one reason I'm okay with some immigration, because we need some people to keep pushing this
this
thing
country
along.
the way they're used to. But
So I think that people are going to start living. There's this company out of Canada, I believe it is. They make these buildings called Boxable, and they make these 20 by 20 houses that they can ship in, and you can connect one to the other. If you want 3 of them, you can
I
connect
saw
3.
something on that.
And they fold out, and so all you have to do is connect water, sewer, electricity, good foundation, that sort of stuff. Sort of the modern day modular homes or
Right.
trailers, if you will. And I just think that people are more interested in enjoying life than they are the American dream of
Owning your own home,
owning
man.
your own home. I just believe it's become a negative, and I believe it's because people pushed the limits and they became a slave to their debt
They
Yeah,
did.
instead of
They did.
instead of just going on a nice hike to Chilhowie.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I've got a theory about our economy, and that is the commercial real estate, I'm talking your high-rise office buildings in major cities, they, since all of this work from home stuff has happened, those high-rises are half empty now. And they're not meeting their goal to pay the mortgages on them. And a lot of those are due over the next 2 years. There's like $1.3 billion of them due. I think it's a billion, anyway. And when they have to refinance them, a lot of it's already happened in California, 2 buildings I know of, where they just handed the keys back to the bank and said, it's yours.
Yeah, quit bothering us about it. We'll
Yeah.
just hand you deal with
Well,
it.
my son-in-law, my middle daughter and my son-in-law, they both lived in Atlanta for the first 6.5 years of their marriage.
Right.
They graduated, my daughter graduated from Lee, he graduated from UTC. They got jobs in Atlanta, 'cause better pay, you know. They lived in a little one-bedroom apartment, you know, for the first couple of years, and then they wound up having one kid. Well, when COVID hit, his company had a 23rd floor they leased, you know, of the downtown Atlanta office building. I've been down there to it, you know, and right downtown. They said, and everybody was working from home for 6 months, and their lease was coming due. They said, how's everything going? Good. You're going to keep working from home. And they got rid of that lease. They said, we could rent a little convention hall or anything and have a meeting once a month, you know, if we
Right.
need you to come in or whatever. Because their jobs aren't, it's not like, you know,
They're not
it has
putting
to
up
be,
a
they're not
garage door.
manufacturing stuff.
Company after
So-
company has done this.
So he said, so then my daughter, she does accounting and stuff for one of the major construction companies down there, but he asked, he said, well, do you care if I move up the road? And they said, well, how far away? 2 hours, you know, up to Cleveland. Because they were expecting their second child.
Yeah.
And they said, no, as long as you come down, if we need you to come down, you come down. So maybe once a month, once every 2 months, he has to go down. Now, my daughter has to go down once a month.
Right.
She goes once a month to Atlanta, but they still have their Atlanta-based jobs, Atlanta-based pay,
Georgia income tax, I guess.
living in Cleveland now in Tennessee, though. So they still got good paying jobs because they couldn't make the amount of money they were making before. But, you know, people can, since so many people can work from home, they're still making good money, but they can move to other parts of the country. We had one lady move from Nashville here because her parents are here and they're getting older. But they said, yeah, you can move to Cleveland, you know, that's fine. So she works from here and, you know.
I went into one of my apartments the other day, and the lady was there. She had some problem with something, and I went in, and she was on the phone talking to somebody about some warranty. She was a telephone person for a warranty company from out of town, and here she was here in South
Well, they
Cleveland.
set my daughter up 3 computer screens, the computer, all the stuff she needs to do all this accounting and stuff.
Well,
And
what this is going to do to
it
the
changed-
commercial
changed
property is going to affect residential property eventually.
I believe you're right. Because as soon as somebody, like you go over here at the plaza over here behind McDonald's, that used to be a big happening place. It was goodies and all this. Now it's a Hobby Lobby, a pizza place, and a nothing. As soon as somebody figures out how to put apartments in there,
They're
your malls are done with too.
Mall-
they're done
malls
with
are-
it. They become churches.
out in California. I know of 2 malls that one has been bulldozed literally, and it was a 2-level mall, 150-store mall. It was in just south of LA. And there's another one right now in San Francisco, or was it Sacramento? Anyway, there's another one that is now going down for the count over there. That is a 200-store mall. They're closing it. And it's strictly because of theft and crime, basically, is why they're closing that mall. And the lack of foot traffic because of brick and mortar stores going by the wayside.
And Amazon. And,
Everybody's ordering
Yeah,
online.
exactly.
and if you go online, Amazon, they'll say people that like this bought these 3 things. and you say, oh yeah, I need that too. And you can order it and it'll be here by Tuesday morning on the back porch.
Oh, yeah.
So why would I go to the mall? I can't even park next to the building. I got to park 100 feet away because of all the restricted parking spaces and
Yeah,
the
you
gotta
fire
be around all
lane.
those people too.
Yeah, and when you get there, there's nobody going to check me out.
Yeah, I know.
There's nobody there. I'm going to have to self-serve myself. I might as well just order it online and get a couple of reward points.
Do you know there is a bank in California right now that is doing away with their ATMs and everything? They're doing away with branches. And what they're putting in is one local branch per so many miles. And nobody in there. You go in and you talk to somebody that's in a central office on the screen.
Golly.
Well, that's the way one local thing is that way now. You know, you when you go up to the screen, you don't talk to somebody even inside. You're talking to somebody in Chattanooga.
Well, I went over
Yeah.
here next to Aubrey's at that bank, and I'm talking to a lady on the screen. Just makes me irritable every time I close my account. I just can't. I can't.
Yeah.
I
You
can't
don't like
deal
that.
with it.
See, you're my generation of that
I
way.
just, I
Now,
just can't deal with
the
it.
young generation is not that way because my son, he says, "Why do you even go in the bank?" He said, "Every week. Why do you even go into the bank?"
We go with our deposit slip.
I said, "Yeah." I go deposit. He says, "Dad, you can snap a picture and do whatever you've done. It doesn't
can't.
matter."
I can't.
And of course, none of my kids have ever wrote a check.
I still write checks.
Yeah, they don't
Of course,
know.
that's going to be gone. I
And
think
the
Europe
post-
only has 7 or 8 more years.
And did you
can't
hear
write
what the
checks.
post office said? They don't want you mailing checks
I hadn't heard
because they're
that.
being stolen. The
So-
post office actually came out with a statement last week that please don't send checks through the mail.
Well, what else you gonna send through the mail besides a check? I don't understand.
I know.
And I can't keep up with it. If I buy something online, I forget to run a copy for a receipt so I can deduct it and charge it to the jobs. So that confuses me. I need a hard copy so I can say, here's what I bought.
Uh-huh.
So it's
It's a new generation.
but I'm like
now.
you. I believe that the only places that are going to be going in these commercial buildings is going to be some form of a service, something that you can't ship, that you have to have. I mean, when you get a hatchet throwing place in the mall,
Yeah.
you know that
Right.
they're on the last
Well,
leg.
at least you're not going to get as many garage doors shipped to your house.
Yeah,
while. For a while,
and
anyway.
you've got to have somewhere to go. See, if that was back in that era, you wouldn't have gone 5 miles out of Cleveland for your store. You'd have gone up there to Goody's Plaza and rented one of them. I just see it. I just think that the economy is really good, but I think that if you're going to do it the way we used to do it, you're going to fail. I believe you got to think about
you
how to
have to make
maneuver.
The small
Adjustments.
business,
Got to.
the small businessman is just getting so much harder to keep. I mean, we're a small family business. I don't know how long we'll be able to do that. In all honesty,
And the
just because-
regulations.
Yeah, we've been doing it for what, 45 years?
46.
46.
Yeah. What day did you open? June.
Third week of June,
Yeah, here we are.
1977.
46.
Yeah, 46
46
years.
Did you see regulations while you were in it that even increased as far as bookkeeping and stuff?
Yes, yeah, things,
Well, and the original thing is he was against the computers originally. Well,
Yeah.
our generation, we were just starting to learn about it, stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
I kept everything down on a
and so
journal.
And it
I'm
worked
like,
fine.
let's go to computers, let's go. And he's like, no. But then the state said, you're going to have to start paying online or we're going to charge you.
That's right.
Or fine you.
Right, so
So-
he picked up the ball with that.
So but then within the year, he's pretty much passed me up doing his online stock trading and everything on computers.
I do some of that
he
too.
Went,
Yeah.
he went so far the other way
Yeah.
from not wanting it to, do all kinds of banking and stuff.
Well, now I'm on the computer more hours than I care to admit to.
And then, of course, now it's payment on the job. I got to have, on all the trucks, we got, card readers because we're getting so much of that now that they just tap their card or insert their card in our little machine and that's how they pay because nobody pays with a check or cash half of them anymore.
So you're having to get into that.
Nobody
too.
pays with cash.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
And oh yeah, we had to get into that. Actually, it's been like 7 years now.
Yeah.
I've been with the one company that does the
So you have a credit, if you go out and put a job, unless you bill them, like me maybe, I'm probably
and see, yeah. I mean, your
an
builders,
oddity.
I still send a bill to, but half the time they want it emailed. They don't even want it mailed.
See, I'm afraid I'll forget it or it'll go
I
to
don't like-
spam or
I'm
something.
like, send me a physical bill.
I'm afraid
I want
I'll somehow or another it'll get
Yeah.
lost. And I had somebody email me the other day, said, "Why didn't you get it?" I said, "I don't know."
But
And I
no,
called
almost-
him back, and he didn't get it. And I called him back. I looked in my spam, which I usually delete, and there it was. It sent me 3 or 4 emails.
A lot of stuff goes to spam, depends upon your provider.
But the
you know.
first
Right.
year we wound up getting the mobile readers, maybe one a month, if that, not even, you know, and I'm thinking, is this gonna be worth it? Cause it's gonna cost you, you know, whatever. But now, oh my gosh, I mean, you know, they do it right then on the job, and it's done.
You
It's
mean
in my
you
account.
you
It's in my
swipe?
account 2 days.
Swipe
It
the
inserts.
card.
It's all inserted now. If it's got a chip, it's inserted. There's
Yeah.
hardly any cards left out there that doesn't have the chip, you know, because that, you know, but chip or tap, you can tap
Yeah,
it.
that,
I
So,
like the
you know.
hard copy where you
And-
can write and there's three copies.
Well, and I
in it.
still make out a cash ticket, which they're trying to get me to quit doing that. Because I still make out a cash ticket, even though they pay the credit card, and they probably got an email receipt. You know, I don't know if they do or not. They don't physically from me, but if the company that I deal with, if they've already charged and they put their email in it, it will automatically recognizes that card and it sends them an email receipt.
Send
But
them a
I physically
receipt.
still write out a cash ticket receipt. And I put like card ending, you know, Visa ending, and
And you've got an
0000.
explanation. See, I got audited by the IRS, and I'm here to tell you, if you don't have a hard copy receipt from the person that you bought it from,
Yes.
you cannot deduct it. Now, I don't know how the IRS is going to handle this when everybody says it's in my email that I deleted 10 years ago. Because they'd have to treat them different than me. But if I didn't have a hard copy, I couldn't deduct it. It didn't matter if it's 500 2x4s from Cleveland Plywood. If I didn't have a receipt, you
Well,
can't
that's one
deduct
thing
it.
I set up a long time ago is we've got a credit card for business and I got a credit card for personal. All my personal gas, all my personal food, all that goes on that. The business goes on the other one.
Yeah, so you
And I
have
always
2
keep it
separate.
separate.
One's Visa,
Yeah.
one's whatever.
Yeah, two totally separate business.
I've got
account
mine
and
wrote on it with a Sharpie. Business. So that I remember, and I still finagle sometimes, forget or whatever, don't have something with me. It's just a hope, if
It's
you
different.
sit down and thought for about 5 or 6 hours straight, you could see what the trend's going to be going. Because this is evolved. This is a clear evolution of the way we do business.
oh yeah, it's changed dramatically from when I started. I wrote everything down in a little book.
He kept all the jobs in his head. I never
And you
could
had
do that.
you had like a 3-ring binder and a thing and a ledger
Yep.
like a.
Well, see, I learned from you years ago was you had the old spiral notebook.
Yeah,
And, I'd be with you, whatever, you'd flip over to a certain page, and then, okay, we did this, you check it off. Then once you got to the end, if it's all checked off, you
I've still got
throw
it.
it away, that one page. But I've learned that from you years ago. I had to do that kind of stuff, because I forget things, or do stuff. If you
Well,
don't write down-
it allows you to forget till you come to it. It
Right.
actually frees your mind up.
Yeah.
well, I kept it all up here for many,
can't
many
do that.
years.
Well, that would drive.
I got my mom's mind, not my dad's.
Well, another thing too is back when he was doing garage doors up until the late '90s, everything was kind of, or early '90s, everything was kind of standard. When I was working for my uncle, you got a white bathtub or an almond bathtub. Now it's ceramic tile, marble, glass. What brand of what color of shade, and there's just multiple stuff. There's nothing standard anymore. So it would be hard to remember. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, and back then, too, when he was first started, you want glass in that door or not? That's basically it.
That was it.
Okay, and you
One
had
or
to
the
paint
other.
it anyways. It
Right.
was wood. So now, and then when we finally started going steel doors, well, you can only get them in white. Well, now There's 9 different colors.
Well, I'm getting ready to order one from you, and here's all the, there's,
Nine different colors.
There's some-
standard colors, 9 different standard colors, and then there's
the
There's
type,
three
the
designs,
molding
three
and all.
designs.
It's just makes my
there's
head
9
hurt.
different windows for each design. I mean,
Plus the
Yeah.
glass.
people are like, well, don't you have that in stock? I said, I can't keep all that in stock. I said, there's no way.
They may not even have
You
it.
know,
And then,
oh, they
you
won't.
notice this
That's
too?
going to be built.
They'll
When you order it,
they'll
it'll be
put
built.
something in a magazine that they don't even have.
I had a lady that she come in Pinterest. You know, of course, I've had
Oh,
a few.
Pinterest. I hate Pinterest.
I'd be able to say I've got a no Pinterest clause in my contract if they want me to build them a house. I don't. But
Because you can't get it.
you
No,
can't get
You
it.
can't get it. It's just a
but
theory.
She showed me this picture of this garage door. I said I can actually have that built, hand built. You know, it's a custom Spanish cedar arched, certain arch. It's a weird arch too. It's not like a standard arch. So you have to have them build the frame. We take house wrap, tape it up there, trace the arch, send it to the company. They
Golly.
hand built the door.
We
For
did-
$15,000 a piece.
Yeah. for
And
a
people
door.
will say, "Give me 2 of them."
Yeah,
She took 2.
it's amazing.
No, that job's only been in one time left. I've only
Yeah.
had 3.
Well, that's the way it
But-
evolved. That's the way it's starting to evolve.
But a lot of this though, because these are all stamped out doors, you know, and everything like that. You got 3 main choices, and they're pretty much all the same pricing, you know, and stuff like that. But you go from insulated, you know, non-insulated to vinyl back insulated, steel back insulated, and then injected foam, or if you're going to be putting central heat and air or whatever. But most people don't realize there's a difference, you know, until you actually show them the difference, you know. And then like, oh God, yeah, that's a big difference. Because my wife said, well, I wouldn't know, you know, I would think a garage door's a garage door, it don't matter.
And then you get the customer that says, "Well, if I'd have known that, I'd have got that one." So you got to tell them.
Well, and that's why we've got a little showroom now too, you know, and they can come in, they can actually see a working display of one. They can see all the different section samples, see the non-insulated, the
Does your
vinyl back.
sister still work there?
My sister still works there. She works there 3 hours a day from 1 to 4. My daughter's in there from 8 to 4.
Works out
My
good,
youngest.
doesn't it?
We got the whole
I don't know,
family.
man. I'm having to support the whole family here. That's it.
See, my wife used to work in the business with me, and she started seeing I was getting kind of overworked. So she would start protecting me from the customers, and I had to fire her.
That wouldn't work coming from a guy that's. Do you think you could step in the business today, or would it run you crazy?
I think I've been out of it to the point that I would have a very large learning curve to go back into it now because of the technology involved.
Yeah, I mean, except for the operators now, of course, you know, you're working from your phone. You know, you can tell you how many times a day it's going up, down. It can tell you,
yeah,
you know, it can
golly.
notify you when it goes up, if it goes down. I mean, when it first came out, I put one in, and I was at a camping show in Atlanta, Georgia one weekend, and it notified me, hey, your door's been open more than 10 minutes. I had a 10-minute thing on it. If it was open more than 10 minutes, they notified me, because that basement garage, critters would go in there or whatever.
Yeah.
So the kids weren't allowed to do that. So I start calling kids, and my youngest, I just got up here to leave. We're going to play some volleyball. I said, well, when did you leave the house? 15 minutes ago. So you left the garage door open. No, I didn't. I said, yeah, you did, but I'll close it. So I closed it. But
From Atlanta.
Yeah.
but you got all that Wi-Fi. And see, when that first came out, I would help people set that up.
Oh.
Now you can't. They don't want you to, because then you got to have access to their Wi-Fi password.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to set up an email account, or you got to use a current email account or whatever. But the app, they've made it so easy now. You download the app, it walks you right through it. It's real easy now to get this modern technology in your hand. But some people like, some people don't.
I just not have it. But a lot of people that I build for, they're doing this smart stuff, and the lights come on, and
Yeah, I
the
know.
temperature of the air conditioner, and a lot of that stuff don't even
They
work.
don't have to
half
get
the
out of
time.
bed. I'm a
Don't
little
have to get
cold,
out
I'm
of
a little
bed.
hot. Change it, you know.
It's crazy.
Well, Amazon Key, there's a thing called Amazon Key. You know, of course, Amazon's getting big. Amazon Key is where they deliver the package to your house and put it in your garage. They have a one-time access through our LiftMaster operators. It's not in Cleveland yet. It's in Nashville, maybe Knoxville. Knoxville's supposed to be doing it. But they would have one-time access. So the bottom of the operator, you buy this one operator, it has a little camera in it. it shows them putting that package just inside your garage door. It opens the garage door, that one-time access opens up the garage door, they set the package right inside the garage, and
they
then the
have to
garage door
leave.
closes.
Yeah.
That way your package isn't stolen off your front porch. Now,
See,
that's not a big deal around here.
Well, see, we
as
wouldn't
much
have even worried about somebody stealing it, right?
Right.
Back then.
Did you ever lock your doors? You know,
I don't even lock the doors here half the time.
you know, it's just like,
I was here this morning and I was in the bathroom and I came outside and there was George McCoy standing at the coffee machine. I said, George, you scared me to death. I didn't even know he'd been here. He was making coffee. Scared me to death.
Yeah, my son said when they were looking for a house, she's like, "What do you want?" He said, "I want a 24 garage, a wood burning fireplace, and I want to be able to, walk outside and not see anybody, whatever." So
It's-
they live in Charleston where they wouldn't have to, lock their doors probably.
Do you wish you'd have retired sooner?
No, I was
Well, how old were you when you retired?
62.
So were you burnt out?
Oh, yeah. I was to the point where I physically got to the point where I had done, well, I'd worked 11 hours a day, 6 days a week for 30 years. And so I was burned out.
What did you do Saturday after lunch? During that time when you was working so much, did you do paperwork or were you doing installs?
No, I was
What would a typical Saturday be
a
like?
typical Saturday, a little later on. Now, at first it was installs I did on Saturday because I needed the work. And then later, when Matt came on, I would take Matt and I would get a job, let's say, over in Murphy, North Carolina. And I would take my grandson and we'd go to Murphy, North Carolina, hang a door and an operator, and then I would take him to an antique mall and we'd go shopping.
Eat lunch or whatever,
Yeah,
kind of
right.
work it together.
Yeah.
see, when he was working, we'd go do installs. When I was working with him, we'd do installs. And then at 4 to 4:30 or whatever time I could get off, I'd get off and go to Matt's ball games. He would be doing sales calls.
Yeah,
He'd
I'd
go out
go
on sales
out
calls
after,
like that. So
after
he wouldn't get on
working all
till
day, I went
6
out
or
on sales
6:30.
calls.
Yeah.
And then finally, after he retired and stuff, and then Matt came along, and then of course when Matt had a little boy and he started playing ball, same thing. I started doing that kind of stuff. So that way you're not missing the time with your kids. Because if you're working
Yeah.
6 days a week, like we did,
You have to mix it up a
Yeah,
little bit.
Yeah, and I would take, like some of those evenings, I would call my wife and say, "You want to take a ride to Riceville? I've got to look at a house up there, And so we'd get in the car and go to Riceville.
When'd you do the paperwork?
I did the paperwork early in the morning and late at night.
go in an hour before
Not
the
during
warehouse
not at
opens.
2 o'clock on
No.
a Thursday.
No.
No,
Go
It
in
was
an hour.
installing
yeah.
or selling.
no.
There's always an emergency call comes in too.
Oh yeah.
Because that's usually on
And-
Friday, right at closing.
Oh,
4:30,
yeah.
never
Yeah,
fails.
4:30, yeah.
Never fails.
Yeah.
Brady County Ambulance. That's our thing right now.
They'll be dialing
We try
right
to schedule
now.
light on Fridays anyways.
Just because I know there's going to be some calls come in.
And the new guy worked for me, he said, never fails. He says, Brady County Fire Ambulance, one of those stations will call,
Yeah.
and we'll be
That's
going
the
out.
reality.
Yeah, and they always, when you go there, they'd say, "Joe drove through the door." Well, they didn't
Never
have
met
an
Joe.
employee by the name of Joe.
No, and they'll say it happened Tuesday,
Yeah,
but we just decided to call you Friday afternoon.
because we want to close the door for the weekend, yeah.
If you had to do it all over again, would you have quit at 55?
I don't think so, because I've always had, for many, many years, I had a very high energy level.
Yeah, strong work ethic.
I could go and go and go and go. And I did that. Randall Fisher used to say he liked to watch me jump up and down off the truck because I was bouncing up and down like a little monkey, he said.
That's one thing Randall, he taught me young too. He said, if you get to a job, he said, if you show up late or you show up whatever, your guys aren't going to be working hard. But if you show up early or you show up right on time when everybody else shows up and you get out there and you start jumping, you start working around, you start doing
Right.
it, they start jumping, they start doing it.
That's
you
funny
know?
how that works.
You know,
Yeah.
it is. It's kind of contagious.
It
you know,
is
they'll start
contagious.
And you
this.
know, Randall Fisher, I remember the last few years of his life, he contracted cancer. And I would go visit him at his house, and I'd bake him some cookies and take them over to him. He liked a particular kind of cookie. Then I'd bake them and take them over to him, and we'd sit there and talk. And he said, Jim, I've got cancer. He said, you can't catch it from me. He said, but nobody will come around and talk to me anymore. And I thought, well, Randall is probably one of the best customers I ever
he's-
had.
He was a great guy.
He was
Yeah.
a great guy.
He was. And I enjoyed those times, you know, getting to have a
He
one-on-one
had
with Randall.
prostate cancer, I think.
Yeah. And he told me right toward the end of his, well, the last week of his life, he said, you know, I did this to myself. He said, I wouldn't go to the doctor when I should have. He said, if I had to do over, I'd have gone when Judy was after me to go. You
How
know.
old was he when he died? You remember?
I don't.
I remember when he died. Seems
Yeah.
like it was
I'm on
10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, I don't remember the
Yeah,
year.
it was after I retired. And so, yeah, that would be about right, I guess.
He would have been about how old, I wonder?
Was he 6 years older than you, or?
He was older than I was. So, you know, I'm going to be 80 this year.
I don't know how old Judy is.
I'd say he was 70.
Yeah, maybe close, if not 70s, close in that realm, yeah.
Well, it's been a good career, and we couldn't have worked in a factory. We couldn't.
I always said, I told people this, they asked me, how come you're in business, you know, for yourself? And I said, I've always been too ornery to work for anybody else, you know,
Yeah.
and that's kind of true in a way.
Sure.
Because I've always known what I want to do, how I want the job done, and done it.
And you seem to be the guy that wants to be in charge of your own destiny.
Yeah, pretty much. I have a difficult time accepting authority, I guess, maybe is one aspect of that. But, you know, it's been, I've seen the Lord's hand in all of this from the start to the finish. The way I wound up in the garage door business, you asked me about that earlier. The reason I went to that company was because I was supposed to go to work for Reynolds Aluminum like my father. I had an appointment, I was there that day. Kennedy
Job
got
interview.
shot
That day.
that
Yep.
day.
While he
And
was there
my
waiting for a job
appointment
interview.
was canceled and I needed a job. So the next day I went and interviewed for this bookkeeper's job. I got a call on it. So I went. And because they had rescheduled the other appointment for another week away or so, and I needed a job then because I had a family and I needed to pay the bills. So I went and took this job, and it just worked out that that's how I got into the industry.
You think God had a direction?
Oh,
in it?
definitely.
Otherwise, you'd have gone back the next day.
Yeah, and been working in the
Yeah.
quantometer
Yeah,
lab
yeah.
at Reynolds Aluminum, you know.
All in God's plan.
You
Yeah,
wouldn't be here right now.
right. And,
Dedicated the business to
and
the
the-
Lord from day one.
yeah, from the day one, we dedicated the business to the Lord. And this is a true story. We would come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and have no work for the day. My wife and I would pray for enough work, and within 15 minutes, the phone would ring and we'd have work for the day. That happened, I can't tell you how many days that happened at our company.
No coincidence.
No.
When I took over, she marked on the floor. She said, "This is the prayer spot
Yeah.
where I'm on my knees praying for business.
Yeah.
She said, so this is where you get down on your knees and you pray for business.
That's the
I said, I'm
place.
still getting,
Yeah.
I'm still getting doors from her prayers. So I'm still doing prayers for the next one. I don't know if the,
She overdid it.
you know,
And
I
the
mean,
funny thing about his son, when he was a little boy, he drew a drawing, and he drew a picture of a garage door, and he said, when I grow up, I want to work with my daddy. And we've still got that drawing out at the shop.
He's a good boy,
he's
isn't he?
great.
Oh, he's a
one
great-
of the hardest
He really is.
workers, and
He is
he's
awesome.
got
How old is he now?
37,
I remember about the first day he
30.
went to work for y'all.
36.
Yeah.
I saw y'all at the Wendy's.
Oh,
Isn't
yeah.
that funny how I remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
You said, hey, my son's here working for me. He was at Wendy's. I think he was riding in the middle. There was 3 people in the front, maybe.
I always said, yeah, I always said, he always tells people that, of course, I said, yeah, I started young. You know, after school, I'd go out and assemble doors
Yeah.
at night, you know, shop or whatever, you know, getting ready. But Matt always tells people he started while he was in diapers. You know, bungee cord him in the back of the truck, you know, taking the job. But, because they'll ask him how long he's been doing it.
And
but-
they always ask you, how do you and your son get along in the business all
Mm-hmm.
those years? And I think the answer to that is I gave the orders and he took them.
I always said it, I'm more like my mom personality and not my dad. If I had the same personality as him, we probably would have clashed too much because a lot of fathers and sons can't work together
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
they're
Yeah,
the
me
same
and my
head
dad,
button.
yeah.
Where I'm more like my mom in
Oh,
certain
I couldn't have
aspects,
worked with my
personality.
father.
So
No way.
Nothing against him, just
No,
couldn't
It
do it.
no.
worked
I
out
just-
good,
Yeah.
you know. And then of course my son's more like my wife, so that probably works out good too.
You've always been a solid guy,
so. Well, thank
hadn't
you.
you?
Oh,
You
yes.
too.
Just
Yeah.
a solid
I mean,
guy.
in all
Not
honesty,
as solid as you.
Uh,
You got me beat on
I just try
solidness.
to do good, hard stuff. Put in good stuff. Take care of people. I mean, it's all about the reputation. We don't advertise I mean, I help out schools when I can.
When
you
you
know,
have
maybe
to.
the firemen's, you know, maybe the
When you
firemen's
have to
thing,
buy a calendar.
you know, help out advertising there a little bit, but we don't advertise really. You know, it's all word of mouth. I mean, I had one person not too long ago said, you know, they moved here from, you know, out in Wyoming. And they're like, I'm like, so how'd you hear about us, you know, and stuff? He said, well, I asked 6 people. He said, 5 of them told me to call you, you know, and so, you know, it's all about
No, we-
word of mouth, you know.
We've been
So,
blessed over the years.
Yeah, Lord
Isn't that
bless us.
something since 1977?
Yeah.
You're still in business. No hiccups. You're still here. That's something.
It's
It is. You don't see. I mean, think of all the places that are gone now that we used to eat
Yeah.
at, or we used to go to, or you
You're,
know, or
you're still
businesses.
here, and you'll be putting doors in tomorrow.
Yeah. I had to go by today and check, make sure it was ready.
It doesn't
I
end,
don't, I
does
don't
it?
work on Sunday.
Did you go to
though.
church this morning?
I did not. I watched online.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Tammy's had a lot of health
Yeah.
issues, so we've been watching.
I'm there
online.
every
But
Sunday,
he's there.
8 o'clock, 8:15
With
service.
Beecher Hunter. Boy, he's got a nice wife, doesn't he?
Yeah, Lola's a good one. She is.
She's like perfect.
Yeah.
So you go over here at First Baptist?
Yes.
You ever eat over there at lunch when they have that lunch?
Oh, yeah.
Boy, it's good, isn't
Yeah,
it?
very good lunch.
Is it in the summer or the winter that they have it? I get it confused.
It's it's off during the summer. It starts up again middle of August,
Yeah.
and then it'll go all winter
So it's
long.
June, July, and August is the off months,
Yeah,
I guess.
June and July, part of August. Yeah.
Jeff Loving good over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't get rid of him. No, Jeff's a good guy.
He really is.
He really
come from a
is.
good family.
Yeah, yeah,
Cleveland is about as good a place to live as you can live, isn't it?
yeah. And
They came back. My daughter and son-in-law came back from Atlanta because they didn't want to raise their 2 kids there. I mean, you know.
just
And
a whole
of course, at the
different world
time
here.
too, they were burning down restaurants and all kinds of stuff
Oh.
was going
one
on.
of the reasons I left Chicago was because I drove by their school. Now, that was in 1976. I drove by their school, and on the corner, there was a bunch of kids out there, and one of them had a beer in his hand. And I thought, I don't want my children growing up in this society.
Well, they were mean too. I mean, some of them kids, and they were destructive. I mean, because I remember, you know, walking. Of course, I made friends with like the second toughest kid when I
Yeah.
first got there.
Yeah.
And then but I mean, do things like take the gas cap off the car and just throw it, and
Crazy.
just dumb stuff. And I'm going back later and finding it and putting it back on the car.
Crazy.
But yeah, just. So I'm really glad he moved us here.
I'll tell you though, I had some good experiences in Chicago. I put doors in for Paul Harvey on
Is
his
that
house.
right?
On
Did you
his
get to
house.
meet Paul Harvey?
Oh, yeah. Met him a couple of times and put door in for Hugh Hefner on the Playboy Club. Put a door in for Sam Giancana, who was a mafia fellow. I didn't know he was.
Giancana, I guess, right?
Giancana, yeah. And I put doors in for Anthony Russo and a couple of other of those guys.
All those Italians.
Yeah. I did a lot of work for them. At the time, I didn't know who they were. I pulled away from.
He was a little young and naive.
Totally naive.
Yeah.
I pulled away from the job. I got stopped by the FBI. And they said, "What were you doing at this address?" And I said, "Well, I was selling garage doors." And I pulled out my takeoff from where I had taken, had the information from the order. And he had ordered $10,000 worth of doors from me. And so they looked at that and they said, "Okay, you can go." And I said, "What is going on?" "Well, don't worry about it. You just go on." So I went back and I asked my boss, I said, "Who is this Sam Giancana guy?" And he said, "He is the head of the outfit here in Chicago." And I thought, holy mackerel,
Don't mess up on the doors.
and dumb me, I didn't have an idea who he was. He was a nice guy to me.
Yeah.
He treated me well, took me down in his basement, and they gave me a cup of coffee. We did a takeoff, and I had a contract, and he signed it, and that was it.
What about Paul Harvey?
Oh, Paul Harvey was interesting. The thing I liked about him was he was a radio guy, right? Okay. He dressed up in a suit and tie every day to go talk on the radio.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He sounds like he'd have a suit and tie.
Oh yeah, he was a suit and tie guy. I don't think his wife ever saw him without it. But anyway, he was a nice guy, and he asked me to go down to Missouri and put doors in down there for him. And I said, "No, we don't go that far." I said, "We can refer you to another company down
Was he
there."
that famous then?
Yeah. He had the rest of the story,
Yeah.
and all of that. But yeah, he was.
And now for the rest of the story.
Yeah, he was in Chicago. He did his program from downtown Chicago. Yeah.
You've had an interesting career.
It's been fun. I got to say, in many respects, when I was younger, I was, at one point, became obnoxious because I thought very highly of myself at one point in my career, because I had sold a lot of garage doors in Chicago. For instance, in 1970, my company car that the company provided for me was a 1970 Fastback Mustang.
Everybody else driving it.
Yeah.
Everybody else got Galaxy 500s, But me and my buddy, we got,
So you felt like you were getting a little cocky?
more than a little. And the Lord kind of straightened me out on that point too. So it's been an interesting.
He had got them though up there to work together. I mean, because when he first started there, all the salesmen, they all had their own territories.
Yeah.
This is your county, this is your county, this, and all that kind of stuff.
And
But then and they were losing jobs because
because they wouldn't take a job in their territory.
And so Dad here takes a contract, was it?
Well, what I did is I got a contract in one of the other salesmen's territory. And it was a nice contract. It was about 15 grand. And I just laid it on his desk and I said, "Here you go, this is from so-and-so. How did you get that?" And I said, "Well, He's building the building, we sell doors.
It was mainly one of his builders, but building in another county or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
And so,
So you were throwing
but
him the
he gave
commission.
him the commission.
Yeah, I was
You know,
just
just
giving
give
him,
to
giving him some money, in essence. And then we started meeting at a tollway plaza, the one out in Hinsdale, Illinois. They had, Fred Harvey had restaurants over the toll road. We'd meet there on a Wednesday morning, have coffee and exchange jobs. And we
Start
took
working
that,
together instead of working
we
against
took
each other.
that
see, yeah.
company from 400,000 to 3.2 million within 7 years.
They were all working against each other until you talked them
We
into
worked together then,
work together.
and that worked good.
It's worked good now. 37, how many years in Cleveland? In the garage, since
46, 46 years.
46 years.
46
yeah.
years.
So were you born here? You're
Born here.
Was your parents born here?
Yeah.
See, I was born up there.
Well,
I'm the
but-
only Yankee in
but-
150 years
well,
in my family.
You're only by technicality, because he's there. The McSpaddens have been here since.
Yeah, and you
See, my son and his son were still born here. So really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of generations.
Yeah, and that's no different. You being born in, Chattanooga Hospital and coming here or
Right.
something. You're still Bradley
So
County.
we've got the fourth generation, and I started writing him a check. He turned 16, started driving just a month ago, and I said, "You realize I ain't paying you just to
Well,
come
he
in
had
and
to
do this."
Well, he had to file income
yeah.
tax.
I said, "I'm cutting you a check from now on. He'll get it all back. He's not working that much because
Yeah.
he's still in school." And
Well,
so,
you got to teach him to manage
But-
money. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't, nobody else will.
well, he already told me. He said, he said, whatever I get, he said, I put the bulk of it in my savings. He said, and then I just get a little bit here to. Of course, mom and dad are still paying for a lot
Yeah.
of that stuff, but
Yeah.
dad don't pay for as much. He's like,
When you have a kid
Young
saves up
gas.
$10,000 or $12,000 at a young age, they won't hardly spend money because they don't want to get rid of it.
yeah. Well, it's like Matt. Like I said, he bought his house because he was not paying rent. He said, "Why am I going to give somebody else money?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt's
said,
a lot
"I'm
like
not-
you, isn't he?
When I built my
Yes.
house, I took out a 15-year loan and I paid it off in 12 and a half.
What was the interest rate though when you took it out?
11.5%.
God.
11.5%.
And then a year and a half into that loan, I refinanced for 7.25, and I thought I was doing great.
That saved you the 2.5 years, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I kept paying the same payment and
Yeah.
working the
So you're paying
principal
extra.
down.
Well, everything's been going real good. Y'all have really done good. As far as the construction business, you're as good as they get.
Well, thank you.
We
try
appreciate that.
hard.
It's been our goal to just provide a good product, a service for the community, and, do it ethically.
It works out better.
Oh,
It
yeah.
does for us.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
Yeah.
you coming, Jim. You're a good friend.